OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
And you're very welcome along this morning to OTB AM. It's Gilroy and Eoin Sheahan with you all the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. We'd love to hear from you. 087 9180 180 is the number to WhatsApp us on. You can always get us on Twitter @OffTheBall, or of course you can use the hashtag OTBAM, or leave a comment on the YouTube stream if you're watching on YouTube. The best place to watch us these days though is obviously on the OTB Sports app. It can be a radio station in your pocket, you can cast it to whatever smart speakers you have, or you can get us on your Alexa or Google Play as well. A busy programme for you, very heavily Arsenal themed. Our legend interview is Charlie Nicholas. We'll look back at the Cup final and where Mikel Arteta is. We'll talk about his career as well. And we've also got an interview with Louise Quinn, who has just this morning been revealed as the Irish Women's Player of the Year. She's just moved to Fiorentina as well, so a pretty exciting time in her career. Deal or no deal coming your way with Phil Egan a little bit later on as well, and reaction from the Irish cricket camp after a famous victory against England in the one-day international last night. Much more as well, including reaction analysis to the playoff final last night, where Fulham eventually found their way back to the Premier League, the most stereotypical of the stereotypical yo-yo clubs. First up this morning though, we're going to hear from Ulster Rugby boss Dan McFarland, who was a guest on Monday Night Rugby, and young Irish midfielder Jason Molumby, who had a very successful season on loan in the Championship in Millwall. Have a look.
So Cappoquin, County Waterford, that's big GAA territory, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah, definitely.
So you were you playing a bit of GAA hurling as well, or was it football all the way?
I suppose, yeah, it was a bit of both all the way up, but for me personally, it was all soccer, you know, football. I remember they'd always be stuck for numbers or whatever, and they'd come around knocking, and I'd always probably turn them away, and also they wanted just to focus on me football, because I don't know, I didn't really enjoy GA so much because I don't know, it was just certain things that annoyed me, I think, within the GA, so I just focused on football, and thankfully that all worked out, yeah. Right, go on. Name and shame. What things annoyed you? I don't know, I just felt it was a bit, I don't know, just a bit different. I think, you know, there'd be a lot of managers, they'd be the kids' dads and all, and, you know, there's a bit of politics involved, and just didn't really enjoy the area. I just thought it wasn't for me, so I stuck out the football, and luckily that went a bit better. Yeah, it's worked out pretty well, to be fair. Why Brighton? I know you were on trial. I think Birmingham City were interested. I think another club was interested as well. Maybe there were others. I don't know. What was it about Brighton that you liked, that you decided to go down south? Yeah, so Brighton was probably the last trial I actually went on before I made my decision about where I wanted to go. So I went to West Brom, Birmingham, Celtic, Villa, a few of them, and got offered off a few of them clubs. And lastly was Brighton, and they had a really strong Irish connection at the time, and there was a load of Irish lads in the 18s and 23s. And when I went there, the setup and the facilities was just unbelievable. And then to make it even better, just the general vibe around the place with the people and the staff, everyone was so friendly. Whereas at other clubs, you know, people walk by you, wouldn't say hello, wouldn't make you feel welcome. But at Brighton, everyone just done their best to make you feel welcome and look after you. So it was a no-brainer for me. Right. It's amazing how that stuff is absolutely essential if you're going to do well, especially when you're moving over as a young lad. And probably staff at the club don't realise the impact that a nice word in the corridor has. Yeah, I suppose when you're going over, you need to be happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was only 15, gone over, and I was gone away from home, and like even where you're living, I suppose, makes a big difference to where you actually eventually go, because you need to be happy where you're going to be living. And like Brighton's a lovely area, and like I said, the people are great, and you know there's lads in similar positions as you know, the Irish boys and stuff. So it was a no-brainer for me, really, and it was just I've never looked back really, because I enjoy it here so much. Was there any to-ing and fro-ing at home about maybe staying, continuing with education, going the League of Ireland route, or was everybody behind you going over? Not a chance. I was eager to get out, because I'd done my junior sort, and I think we're about 3 or 4 weeks left in the junior, so I actually got suspended because I was just acting a bit of the bollocks in school. Do you know what I mean? Because I knew I was leaving, and just wanted to get out. So school was never for me. So, I mean, and like I said, you said yourself, it was a very GAA orientated place, and even with school was pretty much that. And they didn't really like the fact at times that, you know, I'd tell them, no, I'm not playing for the school team, GAA and all. Yeah, they got the hump a little bit with that. So.
Right, okay. So school was never for you, never something you particularly enjoyed. Happy to see the back of it kind of thing?
Sorry, what was that again?
So school was something you never really enjoyed. You were you're like more than happy to just leave it behind.
Yeah, more than happy. No, I never enjoyed it, like sitting in the classroom. And I think the only thing I enjoyed was break time, do you know what I mean, with the boys and just having a laugh when we got a little break or whatever. But no, school just definitely wasn't for me.
How did you find the standard of football when you landed in Brighton and started playing with the U teams there? Did you hit the ground running, find it okay from the off, or was there a transition period?
Obviously, the first probably 2 months were quite tough. Do you know what I mean? When you're going in and you're starting to do like body weights and lower body weights, which I'd never done before in my life, and my body was so sore, and I was struggling then, and I just felt like it was quite tough, to be fair. But I ended up doing quite well in my first year, and I played like a full season with the 23 straight away and stuff. And I kind of never really played 18s football in England. I always kind of missed that one out. So yeah, it was really good. But it was definitely tough to get used to, I suppose. And obviously, big, strong lads, and you just need to kind of play catch up from the start when you go over.
Have you always been a midfielder, Jason?
In and out, we used to play striker a little bit and right mid and stuff, but I think it was actually Noel Harrison, I think, with emerging talent, under 15 Ireland and stuff, and I was playing like a number 10 and striker, and he actually was the one saw me as more of a midfielder. So yeah, from then defensive midfielder or a box-to-box midfielder.
All right, okay. And away from the pitch then, you talked about the importance of being happy. Were you happy with where you were living? Did you settle in off the pitch? Yeah,
so I first moved over and I had a nightmare. I was in digs for 2-3 weeks with a family, and it just didn't go well. I was so homesick and I just didn't enjoy it at all. And I ended up moving with a lady, and Dan Mandrew's now playing at Bowes. I was living with him for a good 3 years, and just instantly felt so happy, and I felt just comfortable and at home, do you know what I mean? Because they treated us so well, and we had like our own little living room, we had a ping pong table, the lot, so it was buzzing in the end. It was really good, and it was just right around the corner from the training ground, so it was very convenient as well.
Great. You made real progress. Things were going very smoothly, and then the injury happens. So this was a proper nightmare scenario for you in many ways. Initially, you did your knee, and was it 8 months out? At first, that was the initial problem?
Yeah, so like I said, things were just starting to kind of go well for me. I just turned 18 and was doing well. You know, I was training with the first team, made my debut and a few things, and then I had a few niggles at my knee all along throughout Brighton since I joined, like little things that leave me out for 2-3 weeks or whatever. But yeah, I just went in for a tackle, and I ended up my knee subluxed, which means like it's kind of semi-dislocated and goes back into the socket. So what happened first is I went to see a specialist, and because I was young, they didn't really want to operate because, you know, I had a good chance of my body healing itself or whatever, but it didn't work, and I came back after 7 or 8 months for the pre-season, and literally my second, third training session, I've done it again. I was even worse and had to get a big operation after that, so it ended up being, you know, around 15 months in total. So it wasn't ideal, I suppose. It was probably made me a lot better for it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Where is your head when you do the injury the second time after 3 days back? I can only imagine the devastation when they scan it or when they look at it, or they say, yeah, bad news, you've done the exact same thing again.
Yeah, I was gutted, to be honest, because all along when I was at home, I was enjoying my summer with my family, and I was kind of get like 6 weeks off, and I was just wishing away the 6 weeks because I was being told by Brighton, you know, you're going to be back in training, and I hadn't trained in 7-8 months, so I was absolutely buzzing to go, and then all of a sudden to get that setback. And when I went to see the specialist, I was a bit nervous, and I think the club were nervous as well because there was talks of getting a microfracture behind my knee, and if you get that, it's not good news. But thankfully the specialist got scans and said I didn't need that, so it was only going to be 6 months. I'm saying only another 5 or 6 months because it was so long, but it was good news to me anyway.
Right, okay. And do they know why it happened the second time? There was obviously some weakness from the initial injury.
No, so they scanned it obviously when it first happened, and my ligament hold in my knee was a bit fragile and wear and tear. But because I was young, they thought I'd be able to deal with it, and all my rehab up until I did it the second time was just trying to get strength around build up my leg muscles, build up my quad muscles in order to keep that knee in place. But it just didn't work. I think I needed the operation, but it was something the club definitely wanted to do because I was so young. But just one of them things, I think, in the end where it was just unfortunate.
I was listening to you talking on Irish Football Fan TV, and you were saying, I think around the time of the second injury, you were on a team night out, or it was a night out, and Shane Duffy, who's obviously at the club, gave you a few words of encouragement or told you to kind of cop yourself on a little bit, or dig deeper. I'm not too sure what he said, but clearly you were feeling pretty down about the whole situation anyway.
Yeah, I was. So I was never really much of a drink rising, but I was probably gone out a bit too much than I should have, because I was just thinking my head was completely gone. I was just going out enjoying myself with a few of the boys that were playing. And I remember I went into the physio room. I was kind of messing with one of the boys, and I ended up bashing my knee off one of them, like a knee-to-knee contact. And all of a sudden the physio comes in, and she done a daily kind of test on my knee, and noticed it was swollen, and I instantly shit myself because she couldn't, for another week or two, she couldn't get the swelling down, and no matter what, couldn't get the swelling down. So I was after bashing up against one of the boys, and it was just a nightmare because obviously I panicked because swelling isn't a good sign, do you know what I mean? And I just panicked in case I'd done something to it again. And Duffy got ear to that and met me on the way out, and he just had a few words, and he just, it was something I needed, probably a little bit of a kick up the arse and an arm around the shoulder as well at the same time. So he's been very good to me since I first came, really.
Great. And did that have an impact? I mean, did you try and knuckle down then after that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd knuckle down anyway,
Okay.
I felt like I was doing it, but that definitely gave me an extra kick just to kind of get back in line, I suppose. But every day I was doing my rehab to teach, you know what I mean, just trying to get back, and you just feel disheartened, I suppose, when everything you do just doesn't work. So I probably needed that little pick-up from Duffy as well, to be fair. No,
it's understandable. When did you actually get back on a football field, getting through a week of training? How long ago was that now?
So last February, so about 16 months ago, I'd say.
Yeah.
So a year and a bit now. Last February I came back, and Italy, Stephen Kenny was just the Ireland manager as well at the time, and he actually came to me first game back. I played 45 minutes against Man City, and had a chat with him afterwards, and he was just delighted with me, and I felt really good. And he was picking the team, I think it was 3 weeks later. I was only back after, as you said, like 15 months out, and then I was going in there just hoping, to be involved or being around it some bit, but I wasn't expecting to even play. And then Stephen made me captain and stuff, so it was unbelievable, like how quick football goes from being down and you know what I mean, seeing no way out, and then all of a sudden you're captain your country. So it was unbelievable. Wow,
that's incredible. You must have thought he was pulling your leg or something. Like, fair enough playing, but captain.
No, I couldn't believe it, to be honest, because I was honestly going in just thinking, right, because I was only back, that he wasn't even going to play me. He was just going to have me around the squad for maybe the next group of games or whatever. But yeah, it was unbelievable.
What does Stephen Kenny want from you, Jason, on the pitch? What's his main message to you when you're going out and playing in his midfield?
Just probably dominate, I think, really. Just literally run all over their midfield, you know, just take the game to them and be positive, bring others with you sort of thing as well. I think that's probably my role anyway, you know, just setting the tempo and setting the game for everyone else. And he wanted to be really brave and just go and dictate possession as well. You know, he's really into giving everyone confidence and freedom to play. So he's been really, really good with us, to be honest, and I've really enjoyed it.
The loan year at Millwall, was that something you were happy to do? Did you think, does this mean Brighton don't fancy me? Did you feel I need to get out and play first team football? What was the thoughts around that move?
No, so, I was back from the Toulon tournament, and you know, I was getting a few clubs interested and stuff, and there was a new gaffer, obviously. Graham Potter came into Brighton, and I remember I trained the first day of pre-season, and you don't know a new manager, you want to try and impress him, but I actually tore my quad first day, so that was kind of ruled me out straight away. So in the end, I went straight out on loan, which I was very happy to do, to be honest, because I just needed to play football or even compete in the first team. And you know, I had like League One, Scottish champ, and a few teams, and you know, I could wear the number 8 shirt at them clubs that were interested in me. But for Millwall, they came in and said, look, you have to fight for your place, sort of thing. They were a championship club, and I just wanted to try and test myself and aim as high as I could. So I wanted to go to the championship and try and take it from there.
Fair play to you. I mean, it went well. I know your first league start wasn't until September, so it's not like you just walked into the team. But once you got in there, as I said at the start of the interview, 36 matches across the season. Millwall finished 8th. What a brilliant kind of first proper senior year for you. And you caught Stephen Kenny's eye. He's name-checked you. People, you know, fans have been watching you play at Millwall. I know the fans at Millwall really took to you as well, but Irish fans have been watching you as well. So, it kind of couldn't have gone much better from your perspective. Did you find the step up in standard okay?
Yeah, it was obviously tough. Like you said, I probably struggled at the start, really, where obviously I didn't have a pre-season under my belt and didn't get that, and everyone was probably a bit fitter than me and everything. And obviously the boys were much used to champ tempo than I was. And for the first 4 or 5 games, I probably thought the tempo was a lot for me, and not struggled, but I found it tough. But I started getting confident, getting used to it. Then it all went to plan from there, really. And yeah, like you said, I didn't really look back, and we had a really good season. And yeah, I would have snapped your hand off that season if you said, you know, you play 40 games or whatever for Millwall. So absolutely buzzing. Yeah,
no, I can imagine. And did the tempo start to feel normal, like 30 games in? Is the tempo just something you're not even thinking about anymore, or was it always a challenge?
Yeah, no, the tempo, I got used to it, to be fair. And obviously, you know, it was my first league games, and league are a lot different to cup games. Like, I had a few cup games at Brighton, but the intensity in league games is a lot more, I felt, and it's just something to get used to. And yeah, I thought I got used to it fairly quick once I did get me a few opportunities. Great.
So what's the plan now? Are you back with Brighton for next season? Is it all still undecided? Are you looking at another loan move? Where are you?
Yes, it's all a bit undecided still. Obviously, I'm going back to Brighton to try and get in the team and impress the gaffer there. And we'll come to a decision then to see what would be best for me, because you know, I need to play games, I feel, and I want to play games, especially after having a full season now at a championship club, a top 10 championship club. So I just feel like I want to play and I need to play. So just looking forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, Brighton have offered you, or more than offered you. I know you've signed a 3-year extension, so you're contracted with Brighton until 2023. So clearly, you know, they like you and they stuck by you through your injury. So it's probably just a case of the timing and whether they feel you're ready. I'm not quite sure how that's all decided. Like if you're told, well, listen, you might get 15 games here across a Premier League season, but you might get 30 or 40 in the Championship. What do you want to do? That's kind of maybe a scenario you might be looking at.
Yeah, obviously it's a big decision to weigh up, and obviously, you know, nothing's really guaranteed in football. No matter what you do, you need to make your own look, sort of thing. No one's got to hand them games to you, you know what I mean? So I just look forward to whatever happens. And like you said, Brighton have been unbelievable. Me, honestly, couldn't thank people enough at the club. The physios, the coaches, everyone's really helped me, and there's some really good people at the club, and it's definitely on the up as well, so it's looking good for the future.
I'm just presuming it's not possible to generate the same amount of adrenaline when there's not a crowd there.
Sugar, I don't know.
You can ask your SC guy later.
Yeah, well, I think that I was just trying to think back to when I was playing, which is a long time ago. I you know, there've been lots of games when I was playing that where you don't really notice the crowd for chunks of the match, but right. Then when you really need them and they're getting behind you, you do notice them. So, yeah, I guess there would be, like here at Kingspan. For instance, if when we're playing in big European games and those tight moments come and stand up for the Ulsterman is roaring out over the pitch as you're running to a line out 5 metres from Racing's line, I have absolutely no doubt that when I think about it, that adds to the adrenaline of it. So the replacement of that with a silent crowd is going to all have to be about what we're trying to achieve and what we need to do.
Yeah. So Connacht are on the horizon. Obviously, you're no stranger to Connacht. It's funny, you talked a moment ago about how maybe you were going to go into teaching and then rugby comes into your life and suddenly you spend, 6 years playing at Connacht, another 9 years coaching there and across Ireland. It's funny how life goes. What did you take from that whole experience? It's a considerable part of your life spent in Galway.
Yeah. Oh, look, I loved it in Galway. My son Thomas was born there, and my daughter Alex and Thomas grew up there and did the vast chunk of their schooling there. And we got a lot of really good friends who are still there. And it was interesting because when I arrived, as a player the previous year, I was at Stade Francais, and although I didn't play as many games as I would have liked, we'd won the French Championship that year. And when I arrived in Connacht, I think we had 11 full-time professionals in the squad, and full-time professionals was a loose description of what we were at the time. But geez, there was so much passion and so much heart, and the coach who was there then, he arrived at the same time as me. Stefan was a South African guy, and Steph was old school, but it was exactly what we needed. It was it was time and place. Like, the context was perfect. He whipped us into shape, and put us into a pretty good position to naturally move on to the Michael Bradley era, and Michael Bradley moved us on as well. I reckon that the biggest thing I learned, Joe, in Connacht was that it doesn't matter what happens at the weekend. You have to be able to enjoy your job on a Monday morning. And finding how to do that is a huge part of your own sustainability in professional rugby. And I would say that's important, whether you're playing at Leinster or you're playing at the Kings. You still have to, because professional rugby, even if you're at one of the winningest clubs like Leinster, it still has huge up and downs. So you can't measure your life's enjoyment on whether you've actually won at the weekend or not. It's got to be something more than that. Your purpose and your drive every week has got to be something more than that.
And so how do you do that on a Monday morning?
It's development. It's learning. Absolutely 100%. Because whether you've won in a historic victory or whether you've lost and you've played terribly, there's always something to get better at on Monday. So if you turn up, and you can't stop, it's not that you're going to be miserable, not be miserable if you play terrible, but you can come in on a Monday morning with that feeling of, I've taken a massive kick in the groin here. I'm really down about it, but I'm telling you, when I go home at the end on Monday, I'm going to have achieved something. And even if you're 5% better at the end of that Monday, you can sit down and say, well, yeah, I've actually done it today. I've actually got better. So I'm more likely not to suffer that again the next time. Because let's face it, we all suffer setbacks, don't we?
Yeah, well, listen, no kidding. Just a last point, I saw with all the youth coming through and all those young players coming through, you bought in Albie Mathieson, who Munster fans I'd say were very sad to see go, and Ian Madigan has returned as well. Is Ian Madigan coming in, Dan, as very much a 10, and that's what he wants to do now for the remainder of his career, or will he be moving around that back line a bit?
Look, Ian's a 10. We signed Ian as a 10.
Right.
You know, Ian's obviously a very talented player and has a certain amount of versatility, but he's definitely here as a 10 to give us a little bit of experience. In the same way as Albie's here as a 9, and to add experience to our halfback stocks.
Very good. And lastly, I was just reading quirk of circumstance. Your grandfather's from Belfast.
That's correct. Yeah. He is. He was. He grew up here and left to go and study in the UK as an engineer. He played a bit of rugby over here. He was a Gaelic footballer as well. But he died when I was 10. But I loved him. He left me with a love for Irish rugby. Him and my dad. Watching Grandstand and Ireland playing back in the 80s on a Saturday during the Five Nations was my upbringing in rugby.
Okay, and so who were you made support?
What, country-wise?
Yeah,
Ireland, always.
No question. No turning around saying I'm
never.
Never.
Right. Never. No. Jerry, it's an issue that I've always had on a rugby identity point of view. I've got an accent that sounds like I should be reading the news on the BBC, mate. But I've always been an Ireland supporter. Right.
Okay. God. And I guess the kids would be the same then if they're Galway.
Yeah. My son's blood runs green, mate. So.
Okay.
He has Ireland flags everywhere.
Right. And did your dad play rugby?
Yes, yeah. My dad was actually really good player. He played for London Irish. Headingley, he was a centre winger goal kicker.
Wow.
And
how did he end up with the prop? Son.
Fed me too much. I like to tell people when I was at school, I scored a try in the Roston Park School Sevens from 80 metres out. Nobody ever believes me, and of course there was no video back then, so I can get away with that. But it's actually true.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The OTB Brief. Everything you need to know about sport every morning. Need to get on top of the day's sports news? Well, the OTB Brief is the only sports update you'll need every morning. With all the breaking stories, post-match reaction.
I'm doing my bit to help him, but he's got to do it.
And the best bits from off the ball, all in a 10-minute podcast.
The bulking up, maybe it makes him a bit more stable. But look, I saw it on the range a year ago.
The OTB Brief, online every morning from 7 a.m. on otbsports.com or the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Bang on 8 o'clock this morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. If you've just joined us or if you download the podcast and you get us that way, then you're very welcome. But for those of you who've been with us from 7:30 this morning, you've heard some good stuff there from Jason Malumbi and from Dan McFarlane. Owen, good morning to you. How are you?
Very well, Ger. How are you getting on?
You made the critical error of watching the playoff game last night instead of watching the cricket.
Yeah, stupid move. Thankfully, Twitter exists and Twitter tells you when you've made a terrible mistake in your life, and I was a sheep and I made the correct decision in following everybody over to watch the end of Ireland's super win over England yesterday in cricket. A far superior sporting spectacle to the playoff in every single way, and that is just before you get into the fact that this was a great evening for Irish cricket.
One day cricket's good, isn't it?
It really is. It's sensational. It was like it was an unbelievable World Cup last year, obviously, and the final was something that we'll never see the likes of again. And you started to hear that great old phrase "super over" being mentioned on TV last night. And in commentary, they were like, "Nobody wants to see a super over." And I was like, "No, I want to see a super over." Like we all remember the grand old summer of 2019 when the sun used to shine and sport used to happen in front of live supporters. That super over, if we manage to get that, might make us feel something again. Might make us feel like we're close to 2019 and that 2020 hasn't been a complete car crash again. But still, we'll take it. We'll take getting one over on Eoin Morgan. Obviously quite gracious looking in his defeat last night, but.
The camera panned to him in the last over, and I thought he actually looked kind of happy in a way. There was like a kind of fraternal pride. It was like, these guys are good. This is fair play to them, as opposed to, if that had been New Zealand or if that had been the West Indies beating them or anybody else, he would have been like, this is terrible. But actually, he kind of looked, well done, lads. Come on.
That is not what we want, though. We do not want Eoin Morgan to be gracious in defeat. We want him sulking. We want him wearing a Union Jack around his shoulders, crying. That is what we wanted last. That was the only reason why we needed to beat them last night, and that was the moment that we were all waiting for with bated breath, and to see gracious, good-hearted, kind-spirited Eoin Morgan is not what I turned over to play off for.
He'd smashed the century himself, so obviously he's playing quite well.
Pretty happy with his own performance.
Yeah, so it was like a win-win loss for him in how things were going. But look, I don't know. I mean, if all cricket was one day and it was always as exciting as that, and there was always something riding on it, then I think a lot more people would watch it.
You're forgetting about our test with England last year as well. Maybe that was just kind of a novelty factor that was in play for two reasons. That A, we're playing test cricket, which is still a bit of a novel thing, and also that we're beating England here, which was a thing that was going on for a little bit of that, at least. Although, I guess it does favour the underdog, the one-day format, that if you're going to pull off something, chances are you're not going to be able to do it over the course of a few days, and that's ultimately what happened to them last summer in that test. So it's great in every sense. I'm not disagreeing with you for 1 second here. I mean, give me all the ODIs in the world.
Yeah, so look, Ireland beat England, an updated version of Maggie Thatcher. That could do good business in a montage today. Your boys took one hell of a beating. I mean, there are some fairly obvious candidates.
Who are the candidates for you? Like, who will be your top three people? Like, for me, it'd be, I guess, I'm not even sure if I go Boris Johnson, to be honest. Okay, let's go Boris Johnson, Piers Morgan, Eoin Morgan.
No, Nigel Farage. Right up the top.
Yeah, let's not even refer to them as your boys when it comes to Farage. That's why I was a little bit cautious of Boris Johnson putting him in there. I don't know. There was a whole slew of people that you can throw in, and it is a very, very satisfying monologue to replay in your head. So I'm sure that's what everybody's doing this morning.
Give us your suggestions. 0879 180 180. The famous Norwegian commentary updated. We need some sirs in there. Sir Winston Churchill. Did he go Sir Henry Cooper? Was Henry Cooper even a sir? I don't know if he was.
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you who's been knighted in ever really. These things just happen, and it's like, oh, that person now is an OBE or an MBE. I don't know what's bigger. Did we have to say Sir before that person or Dame before that person? I'm not quite sure. It just seems that it happens. I saw the Queen wielding the sword there recently. So whoever those new people are, you took a hell of a beating.
Sir Henry Cooper it was. Also taking a hell of a beating were the aspirations of people to get to 500 in our stadiums. 24 hours ago we were here, we got duped. The stories had obviously been floated to some key people, and those stories ran in the newspapers, and we took that as like obviously the newspapers were running, we're getting the 500 back today, but it wasn't the case. They hit pause on phase 4, and phase 4 will now not happen until potentially the end of the month, the start of September, and then phase 5 will be September as well. So the chances of us having crowds at GAA matches or at League of Ireland matches or at rugby matches or at horse racing events for the foreseeable future, you've got to say the next 6 weeks looks very slim at the moment.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, I would say, at this point. Obviously, for the rest of the month, that's off limits at this point, and it's hard to disagree with the public health advice. They are making it clear, Ronan Glynn has made it clear yesterday, that it's not to do with the actual act of being at a game. It's to do with the congregation
this
after
is important.
a game, before game.
A lot of people still haven't copped this, and he was asked, what about the Gaelic grounds, essentially, there's a room for 50,000 people and it's never full, why can't we have 500? That's the subtext of but that is the conversation that's happening right around the country. Look at the size of this venue, why can't we have people in it? And what's the answer, Eoin?
Well, the answer is that's not the issue. That you are shouting and screaming about the very wrong issue, if that's what your problem is. You're right. It is a need. It's like a drop in the ocean, having 200 people in the Gaelic grounds. But that is not. You're looking at the wrong ocean, basically, if that's where your anger is directed. It is the people who are in cars going to games together. It is the congregating before and after games. Mostly the people in cars, according to what Glynn was saying yesterday, that there is no issue with people being outdoors together. We would encourage people to be outdoors together. If you're going to have a gathering, do it in an outdoor setting. He said that yesterday. It is the indoor settings where they've got a problem. You have to be in a car to get to a game, generally speaking. Like, I guess what you could then say, I presume that the guidelines have been for players and staff, people involved in games, to not carpool. I presume that advice is out there.
Travel on your own.
So,
yeah.
Travel on your own. So, and that is a far more of a controllable thing than if you suddenly more than double the amount of people at a game. So, you can see why this has happened. It's very, very hard to argue against it, especially the way cases have been moving in the last little while. But then at the same time, it is unquestionably going to be a hammer blow to certain finances, not certain finances, all finances within the game. You've got a lot of big things being said in the newspapers this morning. Like, just one of the figures that you would have seen in recent weeks was that Cork GAA, up until the 10th of August alone, would have lost out on €206,000 in gate receipts. Now, obviously, Cork would be top of the scale here, two very vibrant sports, like in terms of hurling and football being played in the county as well. So that is the extreme example. But money's going to be lost here. There's no question about that. But would that have been worth the price to pay for doubling the amount of people travelling around in cars, crammed in together to get to games? Probably not.
And the thing is that you don't get all that money back either. You're getting a small, tiny proportion of that because it's an increase of 300 people. So for public health, and this is kind of in my view the whole way along, when they say it's okay to go to 500, well, let's go to 500. But if at the moment that's the wrong thing to do, like, think of all of the pubs around the country that just won't reopen because the summer season, which they completely rely on, has been blown up. The tourism trade has completely evaporated. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what the country's going to look like in 6 months' time. But the difficulties that the sports organisations are having is mirrored in real life and beyond as well. So I think that we need to maybe not all lose the run of ourselves by infecting ourselves with more rage at this point when a little bit of calmness is called for. 8 minutes past 8 here this morning. The UEFA Champions League nights in are back to celebrate it. OTB has teamed up with Pepsi Max and Doritos to bring you a special remote roadshow live on the 20th of August with brilliant guests. 5 lucky winners will also get onto an exclusive interview with former Irish midfielder David Myler. Not only do you get to ask the questions, you'll also land a Pepsi Max and Doritos hamper. The first and best place to get tickets to all the OTB events will be through the events section on the OTB Sports app. Search for and download OTB Sports in the App Store. Pepsi Max and Doritos. It's back. Get ready. And we're going to talk about all the football coming back because there is European football pretty much non-stop now for the next month. Shane Hannon, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. Keeping well, and yourselves?
What's going on?
Not a whole pile now. Joining the chat there. I was up late wasting my life watching the Championship playoff final last night. It had the excitement of the fact that one team gets promoted, but the quality, as Eoin mentioned, was fairly poor.
Too much writing on it. It is like, if you're reading in the papers all day, every day, about how this is the biggest and most important thing that's ever happened in the world, you will suddenly find yourself feeling a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I think even like Scott Parker was speaking to Sky afterwards, and he was talking about how he had a quiet beer, I think, on Saturday night, and bought a Chinese, and just couldn't enjoy it, which is probably understandable given what's at stake. So you kind of feel for both managers and sets of players in that kind of regard. And they only have a few weeks now to prepare for the Premier League season as well. I think he said the staff and players would take 2 weeks off. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. They don't have much time to enjoy it.
Was Thomas Kearney playing last night?
Yeah, he interviewed immediately after the game, and I was like, that's the guy who liked the Dadcast tweet.
You like Kilban's tweet about Dadcast?
Yeah, well, I mean, claim it, Ger. Claim this association to the playoff final that had been bestowed upon it yesterday. Yeah, he was one of the first guys they went to after they won. Yesterday
afternoon, he liked the tweet in like 3 hours out before kickoff. It's a bit mad, isn't it?
Mm. It's marginal things, you know. Maybe without seeing that tweet, he wouldn't have been as inspired as he was last night. So you could have had a massive impact. The Dadcast could have had a massive impact in who's in the Premier League next year.
Well, obviously we've inspired him, and so hopefully he remembers us when he's, a celebrity footballer and rich and famous. Kev's basically forgotten us, by the way, now that he's fecked off to Canada.
You think?
He's like, who are you guys again? What part of my life was that? You weren't involved in my... I danced on ice. I played football. I never lived in Ireland. Never happened. Where are we going, Shane?
Yeah, we'll start with that the good cricket news that you've already mentioned this morning. But Paul Stirling fields an aggressive approach with the bat, was key in Ireland's 7-wicket victory against England last night. Andrew Balbirnie's side successfully chased down 329 with 1 ball to spare to defeat the world champions in Southampton. Stirling top scored with 142, as Ireland also secured their first points in the World Cup Super League.
Yeah, we've chased over 300 a number of times, especially particularly in World Cup, so we knew we could do it. It actually maybe just freed us up a little bit to go a little bit harder up top instead of trying to set it up in the first innings. So it gave us a bit of freedom to go out and have a bit of fun. And then when we got into the middle overs, we were able to take it around. So it's just a pretty solid chase in the end.
England won the 3-game one-day international series by 2-1, but we won't mention that. Fulham are heading back to the Premier League, as we've said, after winning last night's Championship playoff final. They beat Brentford 2-1 after extra time at Wembley, thanks to 2 goals from Joe Bryan. That win means top-flight football will return to Craven Cottage just 1 year after the club were relegated. The win guarantees the Londoners a financial windfall too of £170 million. No wonder Scott Parker couldn't sleep. Fulham boss Parker struggled to contain his emotions when speaking after the game at Wembley.
What makes me happy is that I see a group of players only a year ago who were struggling. I've drived this team every single day, and what makes me proud is that I stand on the touchline tonight and I see a team what represents what I've probably been saying over the last 12 months.
Wigan will play League One football next season after the club lost its appeal against the 12-point deduction for going into administration. An EFL statement says the decision made by the arbitration panel is final and legally binding. That outcome also means Barnsley do retain their championship status. Here at home, Shelbourne are up to 4th place in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. Ryan Brennan's first half header gave Ian Morris's side a 1-0 victory at Finn Harps. Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, meanwhile, has vowed to play a strong team against Lask in the Europa League this evening. United are 5-0 ahead heading into the second leg of the tie and are set to seal their place in the quarter-finals of the competition. United will play either FC Copenhagen or Istanbul Başakşehir in the next round. The Turkish side have a 1-0 advantage going into their second leg. Louise Quinn has been named the Republic of Ireland Women's Senior Player of the Year. It's the second time the 79 times capped defender has won that award. Quinn recently left Arsenal to move to Italian club Fiorentina. It was a day of shocks at the World Snooker Championships yesterday, with world number 4 Mark Allen and former champion Sean Murphy both knocked out. Antrim's Allen was beaten by world number 89 Jamie Clark 10-8, while Murphy was defeated by Thailand's Nopon Sangkam by 10 frames to 4. Antrim's other representative Jordan Brown losing to 3-time world champion Mark Selby as well. So the Irish interest unfortunately ended in Sheffield. Today sees the end of the first round ties before the second round gets underway, with John Higgins playing Kurt Mafflin and Mark Williams taking on Stuart Bingham. Some rugby news this morning. Munster set to be without RG Simon for the start of next season. The World Cup winning lock has revealed that he's been given permission from the Reds to play for South Africa in the upcoming Rugby Championship. Damian De Allende is also likely to be in the Springbok squad for that tournament, which is due to get underway in New Zealand in November. Some big news from the tennis world as well yesterday evening. Rafa Nadal will not defend his US Open title after pulling out of the tournament over coronavirus concerns. He called the health situation very complicated when announcing his decision on Twitter. The event begins in New York at the end of this month. Nick Kyrgios, of course, pulling out already from that tournament. You can read all the latest on that story on the new OTB Sports app right now, or indeed at otbsports.com. Some golf. Defending champion Brooks Koepka thinks Shane Lowry is among his main rivals at this week's PGA Championship. Koepka will bid to become the first player since the 1950s to win the same major in 3 consecutive years when he tees it up in a group with Lowry tomorrow. The former world number 1 has praised the Open champion's short game, adding that he expects the Offaly man to be in contention on Sunday. And finally, for me this morning, Sky Sports could use enhanced crowd audio when they broadcast GAA matches later this year. The Irish Independent reporting that the broadcaster is considering the use of simulated fan noises should the championships be played behind closed doors. Sky deployed the technology, of course, during their coverage of the Premier League following the restart, so it could be on its way to the GAA as well.
Yeah, I'm all in favour of this, Eoin. What do you think?
Yeah, it's...
Ref, what are you doing?
That is we have plenty of time now, Sky Sports. We should definitely get some individual shouts getting recorded between now and then. Are we going to get a super fader for the Dubs and Croke Park and then a regular fader for all the rest of the counties, the minnows who dare show their face in Dublin for the day? This is the levels we need to go to for authenticity. Oh, but again, on yesterday's point, why would we use Croke Park? Why does that necessarily have to be the ground where everything takes place? Is what I would be asking.
Well, I think probably because it's easier to socially distance there, and the camera positions are better, and they were built specifically for it. I would say that that's the reason. You're essentially saying, can we have these matches at training grounds, Eoin? Is that right?
Why not? Why not build your fan walls around a training ground or around a development centre where you've got all these massive buildings where people can use as dressing rooms anyway. And if you want to go to the next level, the voice that you were doing there, that person has a face there. I don't know who that person is, but you can stream their beautiful face onto the side of the pitch via Microsoft Teams or something and have a whole host of all those faces on All Ireland final day. It just wouldn't look very good in Croke Park.
That face has high blood pressure, a little bit of ketchup there, and an arse crack on display for everybody who's in the seats behind him.
And we need the cardboard cutouts. I think. I think soccer have had the cardboard cutouts of the images of fans. We need the Mayo mix in the crowd. We need the old men, using the programs to keep the rain off their foreheads. We need some legitimacy here.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to kind of put forward our own collection of GAA lads that show up again. The championship cannot be complete without it. Especially considering we're going to have a winter championship now, those programs are going to be under so much pressure over the last few months of the year. Even during the summer, they get a good use. But there's great potential here for cardboard cutouts. I just feel that all those lovely touches will get lost in Croke Park.
What else are we missing from a genuine, proper GAA with crowd sounds that we can actually have? A tinny version of Aaron Naveen where people are kind of checking to see if anybody around them is singing, and they burst in for 3 or 4 lines that they remember, look up at the screen to get the rest of the words, and then as it finishes, that kind of stuff.
You need to have 2 people singing the national anthem. You need to have one person singing it and then the second person to interrupt with about 20 seconds left in the anthem. Another reason for bringing the game out of Croke Park is that you might actually have a better chance of having animals on the pitch. There is always one dog on the pitch in a championship summer. It never happens at Croke Park, except for the time when the Aussies came and smuggled a cat into Croke Park, and we had a cat, I think, on the pitch for one of the Aussie rule games. We don't get that in Croke Park, so that needs to happen. Going back to the anthem, it needs to be played on a cassette tape that's come from 1972 over a tannoy system with a microphone held up to a tape recorder rather than through an auxiliary cord. Croke Park is too good for this sort of stuff. Is what my point is.
Can we have a Christmas themed O'Neill's football and tinsel wrapped around the goalposts as well? Can we make this quite Christmassy?
Of course we can.
Yeah, super Christmassy. There's a strong shout that we might have yellow slithers. Maybe you could have a red, white, and green or maybe they could be the balls could be like the Christmas puddings in the dandy, and those ones are they just kind of paint on the holly on the top of it.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Oh, why not? Why not? Like, actually, do Croke Park actually host functions around Christmas time? You know, you can go in and have your Christmas party, and obviously there's no game on.
Yeah.
Will those functions still be happening? And could that be a way of getting yourself an All Ireland ticket by saying, yeah, myself and my 500-person company, maybe not 500, but my 50-person company want to have our Christmas lunch on whatever Saturday, the 12th of December, the 20th of December. Does that coincide with the All Ireland final? And that could be a surefire way to get yourself into the premium level. We need to start thinking about all these things now and how this works, because we probably won't have 500 people in grounds, which is a shame.
Lateral thinking coming from Eoin Sheahan this morning here on OTB AM. Shane, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. More from Shane across the day, of course, on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app. We are live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Here's what's coming up on the show this morning. Louise Quinn, who has just been named Irish Women's Player of the Year, going to talk to us about her recent move to Fiorentina. Arsenal legend Charlie Nicholas reflects on a brilliant career and the situation at Arsenal at the moment. Deal or no deal coming your way with Phil Egan. Reaction from the Irish Cricket Camp, the sports pages, and much more besides. If you want to get in touch with us, 087 9180 180 is the number. So Louise Quinn has had a very busy few weeks after leaving Arsenal earlier this summer. She joined Fiorentina in Italy and just this morning has been named Irish Women's Senior Player of the Year. Eoin caught up with Louise earlier this week. Have a look.
OK, big news over the last week. You might have seen that Louise Quinn is now a Fiorentina player. She's with us now. Louise, congratulations. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. How are you, Eoin?
All good.
Yeah, good. No, getting on well. Just really in the middle of pre-season, and so just working hard there, and the heat is unbelievable. So we're actually doing some kind of evening trainings really to kind of try avoid that. But yeah, otherwise I've been settling in really well.
How does the move come about, and how quickly do you have to settle in and get involved in training and getting to know your teammates?
Yeah, so I've already been here about 2.5, 3 weeks now. So it was just a bit of a delay of the announcement, but so I've been able to kind of I've been able to kind of find my feet now, especially maybe in the last week. I've really kind of started to felt like I've settled in a little bit more, like finally got my place to live and know the area where I live now, and kind of getting to and from training and stuff like that. So it's now just trying to get to grips with the language. But yeah, my Italian football language is coming along, but then everything else I need to start picking up on.
What is the most used word in the Italian football language?
Oh, just your usual. I don't mean bad language now. I just mean in general. But just your usual of that the defenders do, man on, left, right, turn, those usual things. I'm not going to give you an example though, not yet. I haven't perfected it just yet.
When does Fiorentina, when does Italy become a realistic possibility for you?
Just kind of shortly after kind of the league got cancelled in England, really, because it was still around that time as well that I figured out that my contract wouldn't be continuing with Arsenal. So yeah, just kind of options kind of became available then, and then just started getting chatting about it, and so that was it. So I suppose before I actually came to Italy, I maybe knew, I'm not sure, maybe like 2 weeks in advance or so of coming over.
I guess the opportunity was an irresistible one, even before looking into the idea of how strong Fiorentina are. Obviously, we're second in the league before things got cancelled due to the pandemic. Just the idea of getting out of England again. I know you've obviously played in Sweden for a while, but getting abroad and broadening your horizons in a very different way and playing in another top-class league. I'm sure that idea was a very attractive one immediately.
Yeah, exactly, and Arsenal played Fiorentina in the Champions League, so I kind of had an idea of what sort of team that I was coming into, and I really did actually enjoy how Fiorentina approached those games against Arsenal. It was very, very tough game. We did end up winning twice over the 2 legs, but I just liked I do remember I just enjoyed how they set up. And actually, for the second game, I was injured, so I was doing the the commentary for it for Arsenal. So I really actually got to learn a little bit about the team, and then just having a chat with Antonio, the manager. Then when it kind of came an option, he really did just, I suppose, sell it to me in the best sort of way, and just really was just so passionate about it. And it was definitely something that I had to consider when that option came up.
What is that style of play? What is that approach to the game that you're talking about?
So I think just the way they played against Arsenal, I think it was just a very organised, and at that stage it was maybe a little bit different to kind of how they play, but they were doing some really, really nice counter-attacking football. So trying to exploit the spaces that Arsenal were leaving. It was something where they were really defending really well, which Italian teams are obviously really well known for, but then also trying to create some really, really good chances. And I remember in the first leg, when we played them here in Florence, they really could have easily gone up 1-0 in the first few minutes as well with that sort of approach. So they were just a really exciting team to play. And now obviously for me, Italy being the home of defending, it's just it's amazing for me to then try kind of figure out where I can fit in here and figure it out and learn a few things.
Has it lived up to that stereotype then immediately, that there is a focus on defending and that the coaching is very oriented around stopping goals first before trying to create opportunities?
At the moment it is definitely it's a big mix of things, but the coach as well, he really likes his defenders, so he would actually take us defenders away separately. So the attackers go and work on what they need to work on, and then he takes the defence away himself. So so already the concentration is on it, and some of it is just really bringing it back to basics of pressure cover, getting a line tight when it needs to, and just number one, just protecting the goal. So we've it's still early days, but we're already working away on that, and we'll be heading off for a training camp now in a couple of days. So I'm sure there'll be plenty more of it.
Is that commonplace, Louise, in modern football, that the defenders do get taken away and that there is individual work done on the defence?
I think it completely varies team to team. So I'm not entirely sure really. With Arsenal, we would have probably not as often. It definitely would have been more attack orientated, and then kind of just would have done defending. Obviously, would have been in it. There was lots of 3v2s where the defenders were outnumbered, so you were really put in difficult situations. But where you actually take the back line and just work on your actual shape, and the simplicity of getting a line to move across together as one. I don't think can be underestimated as a training drill, to be honest, because it just you find that connection for me, and I just think that's really important. And I do remember there was a time with Arsenal where we were just kind of struggling to get that line together, and it actually just took a couple of those training sessions of going back to basics and moving together as one, and then it tidied up for the next few games after that. So for me it's incredibly important. Are you learning stuff when you work with a coach like that? Yeah, absolutely. Just even just the different approaches they really want as well. It's trying to find that balance of kind of staying and going, and the players that I'm training with at the moment and the attackers are so intelligent and so nifty. They're coming straight onto a ball, but then they're able to just do a little flick back around your shoulder and they're gone. And even though their body shape is facing the wrong way, so they're really, really good at just those really small situations. So it's, for me at the moment, I'm still picking up trying to then read that sort of body language and to stop that and to intercept balls. And so already I'm learning so much. There's a girl, Daniela Sabatino, and she's really, really well experienced Italian player. And actually, when Ireland played against Italy there a year and a half ago or so, she was actually the striker on the team. So I was showing her a few pictures that we'd actually played against each other a couple of times. But so just trying to figure out that style of play. But they're really intelligent, tricky players, and so that's, for me, that's something else. There's maybe not as much kind of like balls over the top, and it's it's all very much on the ground, and that sort of killer pass through the middle, and to get them directly in front of goal.
You'd wonder why younger players aren't encouraged to go further afield in England immediately when you speak like that, when you've got a whole new way of coaching, taking defenders away and individually working with them, different types of attackers you're coming up against. Like, the standard of the English football is obviously at a continental level. There's Champions League winners, there's some of the best players you're going to come up against, but at the same time, stylistically, getting further afield, getting to work with different types of players, it just cannot be anything but a huge learning experience for any player. And I just wonder, should we be encouraging it more to younger players that England isn't the be all and end all?
Yeah, of course. There's so many options, and it's trying to figure out what's right for you. Me personally, still, I love England, and you really do get that diversity. But then there's nothing like throwing yourself into a really famously cultural football side. Italy have always been a top team, and then even the Italy women's team in the World Cup there, I was so impressed with them how they got on in the World Cup, and I think they surprised everyone. But it's it's just being proven here, and the league is growing massively, and I think to kind of bring that sort of Italian style and flair kind of back into it. And you can even see here now in Italy there's a lot of internationals as well coming in, so they really want to improve and make this league something, and kind of bring Italian football and really bring women's Italian football to the forefront. It's still a bit of a way to go yet, but I think they're really kind of working on that and trying to make it happen. But I think it's just about being diverse and putting yourself out of your comfort zone and trying to succeed when you're out of that comfort zone as well.
For sure, and like when we look at the Irish exports that have gone over there, it's never been a bad thing. Like, I mean, Liam Brady's career is exalted even more because it's actually very famously kind of similar to yourself, actually, post Arsenal. Not just post England goes to Italy. Like, did you speak to Stephanie Roach at all, who obviously played with your city rivals Fiorentina for a season or two?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was just asking Steph's opinion, just even just on the general day-to-day stuff, and just kind of what her thoughts were. But I asked a few people around, but ultimately I was, I had my kind of sight set on it, and that was it. I wanted to come, I wanted to experience it, and just give it a go. And for me, it's just obviously putting myself in the right position to make sure that I'm good to go for the Irish team as well, and make sure that I'm fit and ready for when our qualifiers come up. So obviously I asked some opinions, but for me it was just kind of up to me and my family, and they were just incredibly supportive, and it was probably more just one of those tough ones as well, obviously down to COVID, moving away again, and it's just one of those kind of situations. But once this opportunity comes around, and the coach really wanted me, so that was it. It was kind of it was an easy decision then in the end.
How is life in Florence? I'd imagine not bad. You mentioned the sweltering heat. It's not great for training, but I'd say in every other aspect of life it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I went to some really nice sort of like waterfall lake yesterday, and then one of the girls invited us around for dinner, and we were literally up in the Tuscan mountains. It couldn't have been more Italian, and just literally your basic spaghetti, tomatoes, oil, garlic, salt, pepper, that's all, and it was the most delicious thing ever.
Not envious at all.
They do it right, yeah, of course. Otherwise, yeah, it's really, really tough.
Yeah, very. You're struggling. You're struggling over there. Can I ask, Louise? This may seem like a very blunt question, but why did you and Arsenal part ways?
Yeah, just my contract was up, and Joe was just very, just very honest with me and saying, like, so I maybe didn't play as much this season as the season just gone that I wanted to play, and in his eyes, again, he was like, it could be more of that. Obviously you can't kind of predict those things, but in his future plans, he just didn't really see me there. So that's the way, and that's football. And for me as well, I like that honesty, because I want to play, and I want to make sure that I'm fit and that I'm playing games. And if I'm going to kind of spend another season, in and off the bench, even though I still actually really thoroughly enjoyed my season, and I learned a lot kind of about myself and about a squad and everything like that. But to maybe then do that for a second year in a row, he was honest with me and said this could be the situation. So so that's why we just parted ways. But I had an incredible time there, and there's no bad feelings towards that. I'm still in touch. I got a text off him yesterday just to congratulate me on the move here, and I'm constantly keeping in touch with the girls. So it's it's forever. Arsenal forever be a club that I was a part of, and hopefully I can just get back soon and actually say goodbye to them properly. I think that was probably the toughest thing for me, kind of leaving, was that I actually just had to leave, and we weren't able to kind of finish. Or even I felt like I kind of didn't get to finish what I started with Arsenal. But obviously, just in terms of everything that happened with lockdown and stuff, that just wasn't possible. But hopefully at some stage in the next few months, I can hopefully get back.
Does that make things more difficult that it is in the middle of a pandemic, that you end up not getting a contract renewed? There's so much uncertainty regarding every industry, not least live sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was really difficult. Because you were already in doubt about how they were kind of even going to get sport back up and running as a whole across the board, every sport. So you definitely had kind of some of those doubts, and then for me to then go through a stage again of not having a club during a pandemic. And hoping that people are still going to, want to sign players if they have any sort of budget to be able to do that. So obviously, that was a really kind of, there was definitely some stressful times that I went through. But at the end of the day, as long as I was still healthy, I was still happy, I was still pushing to make sure that I was going to kind of, pick the best option for me. And so far, like, I'm really happy, with that decision. And, and even over here, I feel like they have some really good control, over COVID and stuff like that. And it's, obviously they were hit so badly. And, it was kind of one of the first countries that Europe really saw struggle, but at the moment it's a really lovely environment, and I think people are really respecting the new way of life, and it's pretty much just masks everywhere, and or going into all shops and in kind of close quarters, and we're getting tests every 4 days, so they're really just kind of keeping tabs on things, and it just seems almost like a normal way of life now. You pretty much just actually wear your mask around your arm, so at all times. So if you do need to pop into any shop or do whatever you need to do, you're prepared, and hand sanitizer at every door. And for me now, it's just a normal way. Walking out the door, I'm like, phone, keys, money, mask. And that's literally the little routine that I'm, going through my head. So, so it's completely normal now, and it's nice to see that they're in a good place with it.
You mentioned Ireland and how important it is that you're playing football regularly ahead of these Germany games, and September 19th is a huge date in the diary for our sports fans at the moment. I just want to put one thing to you, because Martina Voss-Tecklenburg, the German boss, has been out talking about Ireland, saying they are a very physical team who don't shy away from any challenges. Obviously, this Germany team is outstanding. They've been unbelievable so far in qualification. They've scored 31 goals and conceded none. Does it irk you sometimes, though, that the first thing that opposition managers go to is Ireland are physical, they don't shy away from challenges, rather than pointing out how good and how fluid this Ireland team has been in qualifying so far?
That doesn't really bother me. I like to be known as a player like that. I think we like to be known as a team like that in general. I think every Irish team likes to be kind of known like that. And if that's just the qualities they're looking at now, well, then hopefully we can surprise them with with a few things. But I suppose I would always just say it, the Germans are then very, robotic and in their ways, even though they obviously have flair and great talent. But the first thing that kind of pops to mind, if you can kind of get that figure out their form of play, can they adapt? Who knows? So yeah, listen, that's just everyone kind of talking about their style of play. I've no problems about that, and will gladly give them a physical challenge when it comes to it. I
can imagine. So Fiorentina, when does the season kick off, Louise?
So it should be August 22nd.
Okay.
That's in the plans. They just haven't set the fixtures yet, but the plan is August 22nd, and so we're prepping now. We're going away in the training camp tomorrow. So, and we're just gonna start. It's the even harder work is going to start there. I think it's going to be the longest days from dusk to dawn, I think, from what I've heard.
Well, very best of luck with that, and very best of luck with the season ahead, Louise. It's been great chatting to you, and congratulations once again on the move.
Lovely. Thanks a million.
OTB AM.
Louise Quinn there, Ireland Footballer of the Year, and in pretty good form. Very excited about a move to Florence, Eoin. One of the great cities of the world. Owen's disappeared on me there. That's what happens. He's been bamboozled. 0879 180 180 is the number if you want to get in touch with us this morning on WhatsApp, or of course you can always leave us a comment using the hashtag OTB Sports or OTBAM on Twitter as well. So let's get into the papers. Here's what we've got on OTBsports.com. Ireland beat England to boost Cricket World Cup qualification hopes. It was a historic night for Ireland last night as they chased a massive target, the same target that they chased in the World Cup when they beat England all those years ago. GAA cancelled season tickets amid guidelines uncertainty. A bit of outcry yesterday about the refunds that were being given. We'll talk to Eoin about that in a moment. Manchester United and Dortmund are miles apart on Jadon Sancho. This is Andy Mitten breaking news on the show last night for us, and I only use my classics degree quoting 300. A great interview with Dan McFarland about his time spent at Connacht before he ends up obviously at Ulster at the moment, and just the very deep Irish connections that he has. Great interview with him and Joe last night on Monday Night Rugby. Let's take you through the headlines. Front page of the Examiner for you this morning is Glyn, venues not why we're retaining 200 crowd limit. And this is the point that Eoin was making a little bit earlier on. Outdoors is safer. We want to encourage people to meet outdoors. If you have a small number of people in a large stadium, from a public health perspective, there's no public health issue with that. The concern is that people have to go to the stadium, they have to go home from the stadium, they congregate before and afterwards, and this is an issue right around the world in terms of getting people back into grounds. The Premier League are talking about it, we'll get to that in a moment. RG Snyman has done media, and so he's all over the place today. Snyman eager to learn from Van Gran, and there's a picture of Harry Tector and Kevin O'Brien celebrating after beating England last night. The Irish Times is next. And theirs is Solskjaer needs more than Sancho to challenge. That's a suggestion that Jadon Sancho isn't going to revolutionise the team. I mean, we kind of thought that about the last big signing they made, but he absolutely did revolutionise the team. And I think that might be the winning run, is it? So Sterling and Balbirnie tee up another famous Ireland win. That's actually Paul Sterling on his way to 142. Not bad, as Ireland beat England last night and beat them well. And so that is the Irish Times. The Telegraph, leading with an Irish cricketer, and that is is that it's Paul Sterling. Obviously, Owen Morgan had scored a century for England, so 3 Irish centuries. And United threatened to scrap Sancho deal. I buried the lead on that one. The Herald for you this morning. We have a disaster for the GAA. We won't be able to field teams next year. We'll get into this in just a moment. This is Michael Verney and Aidan Fitzmaurice. The catastrophic effects of GAA grounds being restricted to 200 people for games until September at the earliest will result in several inter-county teams being unable to field teams next year, according to the Westmeath chairman, Billy Foley. It's the same on the Irish Independent. Some county teams will be unable to field in 2021. Sky Sports consider fake crowd noise for GAA games. We talked about that a little bit earlier on. And Brooks Koepka backing Shane Lowry to shine as McIlroy and Tiger teed up. Brooks and Shane Lowry have been hanging out in Florida in the middle of lockdown. Glory Boys is the back of the Racing Post, and tragic story from Dennis Hogan's yard. Hogan team gutted at death of rags to riches hero Skeptical. Trainer Dennis Hogan has paid tribute to his sublime sprinting talent Skeptical after the rags to riches performer suffered a fatal leg injury in the gallops yesterday morning, hailing him as the horse who transformed his career. So they bought him, James McCauley bought him for £2,800, a Godolphin cast-off, this time last year. And since then, Skeptical had gone on to become the highest rated Irish sprinter, progressing from 90 rated Dundalk maiden winner to Ireland's top seeded sprinter within 4 starts. And so a gelding as well. It would have been this year and next year really, or maybe it could have been another couple of years of big success for Dennis Hogan's yard. So just retired as a jockey, and it's been an eventful and unfortunate week from their perspective there. So Jackpot is the back page headline on the Star. This is about Fulham, who are now a Premier League team again, Green Giants. It's the picture of Harry Tector and Kevin O'Brien. Sancho talks break down. Have they? We're not sure. And big guns backing FAI plan. UEFA and FIFA have rode in behind the FAI's plans, apparently. Number 1, or it's the Hend. Dean Henderson and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are having crunch talks. All talks are crunch talks when they involve whether or not I'm going to be playing football next season for one team or another. And Dean and Ole crunch talks. Keeper after De Gea spot is the that one. Pound sterling. Is that tab of the morning to you? Is it? Is it? Might be. Or is Dream Me Up, Scotty, better than Pound Sterling? I'm not sure. Why didn't they just go Beam Me Up, Scotty? Like the pictures of him off the ground. Anyway, Ireland go stir crazy. That's because his name is Sterling. And Sanch, no, we won't be held to ransom. But who is saying Sanch, no? Is it Dortmund saying Sanch, no, you can't have him? Or is it actually Man United saying, no, we won't be held to ransom? Because they will. Blow for Irish sport as 200 limit remains. That is the Mirror and the back of the... A grim future. Barrett claims FAI are at risk of insolvency. Philip Quinn's story about the FAI. Ireland delivers shock to England, and Munster Springboks will be away in winter. So that international campaign means that the 2 Springboks will be away for it. And there's Paul Mescal. How to get your hands on Connell's shorts. They are available for auction if you want them, or you could buy them because they're O'Neill's and they're cheap. The Times, Fulham back in the big time. That is a celebration from. Brian, what's his first name? Is it John? I can't see it. Apologies for that. Joe Bryan, sorry, the left back, 5'7", and scored with a cracker of a long-range free kick, and then scored actually a good second goal as well as they beat Brentford 2-1 last night. United want to cut Sancho's fee. They want it cheap, and Rafa Nadal is out of the US Open. And then finally for me, The Guardian is a picture of 2 Irish cricketers in the back of The Guardian. England humbled by Ireland. Sterling and Bill Burney inspire victory over world champions. The Telegraph are speculating that Sterling could end up playing in the Indian Premier League. So big opportunity for a couple of those guys, hopefully, to make some proper serious cash in their future. Oh, and where are we going?
Let's start with the season tickets. This is kind of the B-side to the big story yesterday. The big story being, of course, that we can't have 500 people at sporting events throughout the rest of the year, and that's across all sports, obviously, not just the GAA. But the GAA specific story yesterday was to do with season tickets. It's carried on a lot of the newspapers this morning. Season ticket holders have been given a €40 refund. Their season tickets for the year have been voided, and it raises a couple of interesting questions. The main one is, why have they acted now? And that is an interesting question because, first of all, the GAA have acted quite cautiously on a number of levels over the past few months. John Horan has publicly said that they will be following health advice consistently,
And if they are going to lag behind, that's fair enough as long as they're operating in a safe manner. It seems very out of keeping with how the GAA have acted so far this year. They are actually getting ahead of themselves to the point where they are refunding tickets that weren't due to be used until October. So this probably also tells us that the GAA are not confident whatsoever of having large crowds at these games that do take place in October. So there may be an element of realism here, but there could also be an element of maybe getting ahead of themselves a little bit as well. What was the big hurry in voiding the season tickets? Could they have voided them in a month and a half? I don't see why not. I don't see why they had to do this yesterday. Why did they have to act yesterday? It's now going to be very interesting as well that if we're taking this as a sign that the GAA are not confident of having big crowds at games at all, will John Horan then change his stance on behind closed doors games? Because he said that a championship without fans is not something that the GAA were interested in at all. Has his opinion on that changed after seeing what's happened in the Premier League recently? And has his opinion now changed that we've seen season ticket holders get refunded their season tickets? So, you look at the biggest groups of supporters season ticket wise, it's Dublin and Mayo, and they have 3,500 season tickets each. So do we automatically say we are not going to have 3,500 people in Croke Park at any point this year? That is certainly a bit of a leap, but it is an argument you could possibly make after
7,000.
got yesterday.
It would be 7,000, right?
7,000, sorry.
Yeah.
Of course.
But maybe that's what we are saying. Maybe that's what the next few months are actually looking like. When you think back to when they started, it was essentially the start of March, the middle of March, and here we are at the start of August. It's been quite a period of time, and how much has really changed? What is different about people's day-to-day lives now than it was 2 weeks into lockdown? There's actually a little bit more freedom, but not a whole heap. Recommendations are still very similar in terms of people are ignoring them, but you're supposed to be socially distanced. We're actually recommending people wear masks more now than we were at that point, which, looks like a bit of a misstep in retrospect. Who could have predicted that? I think Luke O'Neill did at the time. The science hasn't moved on to a point where people are confidently predicting this is how we're going to deal with this, these are the repercussions. There are news stories every day on the impact that it has on the health of kids. There's this weird 10-year-old seems to be a cut-off point. Up until that point, kids are grand. After that, according to some surveys which haven't even been peer-reviewed just yet, there's a kind of a spot where it becomes more dangerous. Schools are due to go back next month, and what's our priority list here? Is it getting people into grounds to watch sport, or is it to get schools back and to get the pubs back and to get industry back to a level where we're all going to have an economy to live in and work in, and a society to live in and work in? Sport's really important, absolutely, but I do wonder about the pressure from different parts to accelerate things when actually, if you think about it, not that much has changed.
I know that was a rhetorical question there. Sport is the bottom of those three things on your list of priorities. Education and the economy of the country are both more important than sport, and perhaps we all need to get in line basically and wait for the more important things to operate at a higher level before we can possibly consider doing something like using a season ticket to go along to a game in Croke Park this year, or think about 500 people at a game. There may be a situation here where you get one chance to do this right. There is a big aversion to the idea of a second lockdown. Nobody wants that. And the only way to ensure that you avoid that is to ensure that you take every step in a very cautious manner. And what are we going to get across the line first? What is the thing that we are going to take the risk with first? Is that thing going to be sport? You can see why the answer to that question would be no. We're going to have to take a risk with something, because everything you do in terms of getting the country back up and running is going to take risk. So are you going to play that risk card on sport or education or the economy? And it's probably not going to be sport. It is going to be education first, you would have thought. And then maybe in a little while, maybe after the next phase, they'll start saying, well, okay, certain pubs can reopen. They're vital for this country's economy. Again, more important than county boards all around the country, which seems like a fairly stark thing to say when you look at some of the quotes this morning
but that is the reality. A county board is not going to have the same importance as the hospitality industry or education in this country.
The notion that counties won't be able to field inter-county teams next year, I didn't quite fully understand this now. I haven't had a chance to go through the minute detail of what seems to be behind that, but presumably counties are saving a lot of money by not having any training sessions this year. Is that not a kind of, the way that the Croke Park annual accounts, it's like the runaway train of the cost of preparing inter-county teams is something we need to get to grips with. Now, you look back 20 years through reports, and this has always been something that Croke Park would have given out about. And, they have a point, but also they're responsible for it. So, they need to do something about it. Having said that, if counties aren't having training sessions, surely they're not racking up the bills. So why would they not be able to afford to run county teams next year?
Good question. This is Westmeath chairman Billy Foley, who's done a piece at Michael Verney in the Irish Independent today. Just to go through some of the quotes that you're talking about there, we were trying to get training fields and we were budgeting for a surplus this year, but we're going to run into something like a €200,000 loss. So he's putting that figure out there. Westmeath have lost 200k this year. You're pointing out, how can you possibly lose that amount of money when there are no inter-county training costs? He's made the very stark prediction here. Ourselves and Offaly, Laois, Clare and Carlow are very similar in that we do run two codes as best we can. The reality is that we will not be running county teams next year because we will not be able to afford to do so. The future for the GAA is bleak. He says we could have 10 teams playing for the Sam Maguire and maybe 8 for the Liam McCarthy next year. It's shattering to any county, but small counties in particular, the big counties would probably survive all right. So I'm sure there's a slight bit of exaggeration here on Foley's part with regards to the 10 teams partaking in an inter-county championship. Like, it doesn't cost money to actually enter it. Like, your team will show up. His point is that they will not show up fully prepared. How you manage to run into a €200,000 loss with zero inter-county preparations costs is possibly a question that could be raised, but maybe it costs that much to actually run an inter-county setup from this month, or from next month, I should say, even if you're training from the start of September. If you're going to do 2-3 months training, are we looking at that amount for a dual county?
I mean, look, we've seen FIFA and UEFA issue loans and grants to the various football associations around the world. Presumably, this is essentially a call for central funding from Croke Park, and I've no doubt that if counties won't be able to partake in competition next year, that Croke Park will step in at some point and say, okay, well, what do you need and why do you need it and where's that money going? And we're going to put somebody on your audit committee to make sure that the money's going where you say it is. And actually, maybe that's where the whole thing needs to go. It's 8:57 this morning. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. OTB AM is live every morning in association with Gillette. If you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the number. Now, let's turn our attention to the biggest story on all the back pages, particularly on all the English back pages, and that is the stunning performance from Ireland last night where we beat England in the cricket. And I'm delighted to say Kevin O'Brien is with us. Kevin, good morning to you. How the hell are you?
Yeah, I've been better, but I've been worse as well. So, I'm just sitting here overlooking the 18th green in our hotel, just having a cup of coffee. So, just trying to remember and let it sink in what happened yesterday. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic.
Watching the final ball, you were coming off very calm and very measured, and it was almost like about 45, 50 seconds before actually you ended up kind of going, yeah, it was like there was kind of it was like you were so in the moment that you hadn't gone completely mad about the fact that you'd just beaten England again.
Yeah, probably that's what was shown on the outside. Obviously on the inside I was absolutely over the moon, but I suppose when you're in a run chase and you're coming down to a wire, if you let your emotions kind of get the better of you, obviously, your decision making isn't as good. So I mean, whenever I'm chasing runs and I'm batting second, I just try and stay as calm as I can. And obviously yesterday getting down to the last couple of balls, and I was always confident we were going to get the one run needed off the second last ball or whatever it was. So yeah, just trying to stay as calm as you can so you can make clear decisions.
The third last ball, you were pretty close to making contact with it, but just about didn't. and then there was like a kind of just swinging out afterwards, going to make sure that one disappears, and I don't think about it. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I was actually a bit annoyed I didn't hit the previous ball. You know, I kind of tried to read what the bowler was going to do, and he what I thought he was going to do is he didn't. So it kind of the ball kind of passed me before I kind of reacted. So so I just tried to clear it out of my head and just focus on actually trying to hit the ball. Whatever he bowled to me, just react that way. Luckily, thankfully, you know, I hit it nowhere near a fielder, and we kind of ambled through for the single and got the win. So this was a great feeling. To be there at the end is always special when you chase a big score. But you know, it was all set up from Andy and Paul up front with the bat, and before that, even with the bowlers, did a great job to get the England wickets.
It's remarkable how the winning total was 329 last night, and it was 329 in Bangalore in 2011. How do these two occasions compare for you personally?
Listen, they're both fantastic occasions. You know, I think probably the magnitude of yesterday's win and the team we were playing, and you know, the world champions and that type of thing, and that's been mentioned a lot by the media, and it's been mentioned in our squad sessions as well. You know, they are the best team in the world, you know, and they're the world champions. So to beat them is in their own backyard, and you know, having come off 5 months rest and lockdown and all that type of stuff, you know. So they're obviously both two huge wins, and you know, it's hard to put into place which is bigger. You know, but certainly at the moment, you know, last night's win is absolutely massive, and you know, that's our last win, so it's probably bigger than Bangalore.
The age profile of this team as well versus the age profile of the team in 2011, and I guess the progress that cricket has made over the last decades, this feels like it's, you know, there was a breakthrough element to 2011. This kind of feels like it's justification for everything, all the investment that's been made, all the careers that have kind of been put into getting Irish cricket to a point where that team could take the field last night and have enough players who felt confident that you know what, we actually might be able to chase down the world champions with this target.
Yeah, definitely, and I think, you know, the first thing you mentioned there is the age of the squad. It's, you know, I'm myself, William Porterfield, who were in the 14 yesterday. You know, we're by far the oldest players in the squad. You throw in Gary Wilson and Boyd Rankin, you know, we're all kind of mid-30s, and you know, Sterlow's still only 29 or 30. You know, he's still very young. He's hitting the prime of his career. Same with Andy Balbirnie as well. So, you know, everyone else is early 20s, mid 20s. So, you know, it shows there's a lot of potential in the group. And a win like that, you know, it's going to give everyone confidence to go forward and, you know, try and get better and give everyone belief that, you know, yeah, we are a good team. And I think we need to start telling ourselves that. You know, we've beaten England yesterday, we've beaten Afghanistan in India in their own conditions, and we beat West Indies in January. So we've beaten 3 full member nations, and, you know, all away from home. So I think we need to start being a bit more respectful to ourselves. You know, we're a good team. We've got excellent players who could score runs against the best teams in the world. We've got bowlers who can take wickets against the best teams in the world. So hopefully it's a kick for this squad and the younger players to realise that, you know, they're here to take Irish cricket forward, and they're all good enough to beat the best teams in the world on their day.
When did you actually think that it was going to end up falling to you? At what point during your teammates batting and both of them knocking centuries were you thinking, actually, hang on a second, this is going to fall nicely for me here?
Yeah, listen, you always have that thought, but you don't want to get too carried away because, you know, with the bowlers they have, you know, a couple of wickets and, you know, quick wickets, and all of a sudden we're behind the kind of 8 ball. So I imagine thinking back, you know, kind of probably when we needed 30 or 40 to win, when Andy was still at the wicket. So that's probably, you kind of knew it. He can breathe a little bit easier, but then, you know, he obviously goes and gets out then. So, and then I had to go out and help Harry get over the line. So, yeah, you know, it was never really in my mind that, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Whereas back in 2011, obviously I kind of had a big feeling we were going to win from about when we needed about 100 to win. But over here, I suppose not being in the middle, I couldn't dictate how the game went, or how the game went. So but once I was in the middle, I knew if I was there at the end, we'd get over the line. And
can you talk to us a little bit about the level of pressure you feel, or because you've talked before about being in the zone and seeing the ball, and it seems huge. Last night was different, I guess, because it's like the target keeps coming down and down and down, but you can do it kind of gently without actually having to reach for stuff. So what's that pressure like, and how do you keep yourself from thinking too far ahead to the next ball and going, okay, well, I know the run rate is... What is that process like for you?
Yeah, it's something that I've kind of done throughout my career. Batting in the middle, batting in number 5 and 6, where I've batted most of my career, you do find yourself in, run chases, and you just learn from the experience. It's obviously great coming in the position that we were yesterday, where we only needed maybe 7.5 and over. So that's only 6 singles and over, and the next over you get a 4, and all of a sudden you're getting the required run rate. So I just kept telling Harry just to relax. We'll get a couple of boundaries, and we'll get, as long as we're scoring off every ball, we get a couple of 4s or the odd 6. We'll get over the line. So the worst thing you can do is kind of panic and try and win the game too early, and that's when you get a couple of bad overs and a wicket falls, and then a new man comes in and there's pressure on the new man. So I knew once myself and Harry were there, we'd get over the line.
In 2011, obviously, Kevin, you're a young man. You're at a different stage of your career at this point. Does that mean you try and take everything in that little bit more, to savour it a little bit more, knowing that these victories are absolutely super special?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly sitting last night in the change room and just having a beer with the boys afterwards in the hotel, it obviously feels the same to win, and obviously very happy to win and to be there at the end. But there was something slightly different, trying not to get too carried away with it. It's obviously a good win, and it's great to beat England, but we need to do it again. Next time we play, we need to beat Afghanistan, we need to beat West Indies, we need to beat Bangladesh, we need to continually beating these teams to continue pushing Irish cricket forward. So it's a different position where Cricket Ireland is at the moment in terms of 2011. We've got more and more games against the best teams in the world in the World Cricket League qualifying tournament. So we've got to continually put up performances, and we have to get better every game. It's not like where we're just playing a one-off game every 3 or 4 months. We've got series against the best teams in the world, and we need to continually improve.
Yeah, it feels like the whole organisation is actually set up to take advantage of big victories like this in a way that it was only getting going really a decade ago. So what's next now in terms of the rest of the summer for you guys?
We've got 2 weeks quarantine now when we get home, obviously. And then we have our kind of provincial game starts, I think, on the 20th of August or something like that, or 22nd of August. And then we've just got maybe 4 or 5 weeks of that provincial series, and then the season's finished. So our next game officially isn't until January. I think we play Afghanistan over in India, if we can get over there, I imagine. Okay.
2 weeks in quarantine after a victory like that sounds like it's much more crack than 2 weeks in quarantine after a defeat.
Yeah, well, for me, it will be pretty similar, 2 kids and a wife, they kind of haven't seen them for 4 weeks or so. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting home now. It's great being on tour with the lads and playing games, but, there's nothing better than, coming home and spending time with family. So, yeah, it's going to be a quiet 2 weeks for me. Try and do some fitness while I'm there, and then just get ready for the individual series.
Well, enjoy, Kevin. It's a sensational victory, and absolutely congratulations from everybody here to you guys. Well done.
Thanks a million. Cheers.
It's Kevin O'Brien, one of the Ireland heroes last night, who helped to thrash England in cricket. I've been able to say that once before in my entire life, so let's keep saying it, Owen. I think that's the lesson here, right?
Oh, without question, absolutely. And the added sweetness as well of being involved in a series and getting one over them at the very end. And then also the fact that it's England as well just adds up to a brilliant situation. And you can clearly hear from what he's saying there that there's a quiet confidence that Ireland is in a great place to take this to the next level now in a way that potentially they weren't as well set in 2011.
Here's what's on the OTB Sports app. When you download it this morning, or if you open it up, you should check it out. This is your home feed. So obviously our show is top there, the OTB brief from this morning, some of your rugby news, and of course the news from the cricket last night. You can scroll down and get podcasts and video and whatever sports you want. You actually dictate what fills your home feed by the sports that you select when you personalise it. We've got our full radio station live and available at one touch of a button. You just click the radio button on the bottom and away you go. And then likewise, you can subscribe to all of our podcast series and turn on notifications so that any time we update them, we'll send you a little message and you will know that we have got fresh, new, free content in your earballs. Right, Liverpool and Nike Football have released the 2020-2021 Liverpool FC home kit. 2021 sounds like the 2020 and 2021 Liverpool FC home kit. The new kit's available to pre-order in-store and online right now, and every morning this week on OTB AM, we're giving you the chance to win a €100 voucher for the Liverpool store in the ILAC Centre in Henry Street in Dublin. There are 3 ways of entering the competition this morning to be with a chance of winning. Just share the show where you're watching and tag @OffTheBall. On Twitter, you can just retweet this morning's OTBAM and tag @OffTheBall, or better still, WhatsApp us a screen grab of how you're watching or listening to the show at 087 9 180 180. Seamus Egan was yesterday's winner after he WhatsApped OTB an image of himself listening live to OTBAM through his car radio yesterday morning after connecting it through the OTB Sports app. Still plenty to come here on this morning's OTBAM. Keep an eye out in the ad break for a teaser of episode 3 of Andy Lee Meets.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Sunday Paper Review on Off the Ball.
When he wants to do something, he does it. A hugely impressive person, apart from being obviously a brilliant golfer.
My cousins disliked their dog so intensely that they renamed it Scalacci.
Yeah.
And the dog was called Scalacci from then on.
It's a great piece of journalism. That sums up what he's like. The intro to this is just brilliant. He is an absolute control freak.
Digesting the best stories on the back pages every Sunday afternoon on Off the Ball.
I could show a little bit. I wasn't bad in terms of showing how to pass it or how to curl it, or but I wasn't going to try and show Roy Keane how to pass it between 2 guys who are less than social distance apart when the game has been played at 90 miles an hour. I wasn't going to try and show Robbie Keane how to finish in the box when he's been marked by 2 6'3" centre-backs. But what I could do is set up practices that allowed him to test himself to the limit, or to almost game speed.
Missing this.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season. Unbelievable.
And get this, the all-new OTB Sports app. Off the Ball, Ireland's premier sports channel, now has a new home featuring the biggest names in Irish and world sports. Podcasts, interviews, news, commentary, analysis, plus almost 20 years of sporting archives. All free and ready when you are, at home or on the go. The new OTB Sports app. Download it now from the App Store and Google Play.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
13 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. Episode 3 of our new series, Andy Lee Meets on OTB, sees Andy chat to the former Republic of Ireland manager Brian Kerr, big boxing fan obviously. Be sure to keep an eye out for the full interview with Brian, which will be released on our YouTube channel this Thursday and will also be played in full this Sunday on Off the Ball. Andy Lee Meets is in association with the all-new Seat Leon, the brand's first fully connected car. Now, after they won the FA Cup at the weekend, Arsenal legend Charlie Nicholas joined OTBM for a chat about what Arteta needs to do and, of course, his own career as well. Have a look.
Okay, delighted to say that former Arsenal and Celtic striker Charlie Nicholas is with us. Good morning, Charlie. You must have enjoyed the cup final on Saturday.
Yes, good morning. I most certainly did. I think being a Gunners fan for 7-8 years has been painful in a strange way, because you could see we were falling, we were sliding as the standards that Arsene Wenger had set. But we still nick an FA Cup here and there, I think 3 towards his last 5 years. And it kept us going a little bit. But I think we've actually seen the demise of the team. And Arteta's come in, and my goodness me, he came in at probably the worst time I can remember an Arsenal manager coming in, probably, since the Premier League began. So he had to pick up what the mess was. He had to identify who was the good ones and the bad ones, not so much the talent, because if you play at Arsenal, there is talent. But I think generally what he had to do was, who'll buy into my philosophy? Who's the listeners? Who really wants to be ambitious and get this club back? And that was going to be painful and slow, and it has been. But the build-up to the victory against Man City, obviously the league victory against Liverpool, I suddenly believed that what Mikel Arteta was doing was he was fixing the issues in his mind, and he was also getting Aubameyang, Lacazette, some of the youngsters on board, and of course Sabias has been excellent since Arteta came in. And then the defence has improved. I mean, Tierney's helped a lot, but the goalkeeping situation has been sparklingly impressive. So all in all, I was delighted, but not just by the win, but by the performance.
For sure. The remarkable thing about Mikel Arteta, and it's probably more noticeable because there's no fans there, it was touched on quite a bit over the course of the weekend, his live instructions and how audible they were and how in-game, the way he's able to figure out a scenario and adapt seems to be really, really impressive for a young manager.
Tremendously, but he's learned from the best, isn't he? I mean, Pep is the best of technical wizardry that we understand. I mean, Klopp's made an amazing reputation at Liverpool for rock and roll football. We've had the organisation and hard to beat Jose Mourinho. We've had the flamboyant, young and exciting and energetic Alex Ferguson with the popular presidents who like Roy Keane's and the real winners. We've had a lovely balance. At Arsenal, we always went more technical. And now that he's come into a technical setup, he's went, well, how do I fix that? I'm young. Have I got the qualities that can make me a manager quickly? Because very quickly, if you look back at it, how he had the problems defensively, they've been there for 7 years. But why could Arsenal not fix them? Why could Emery not fix them? And suddenly I had to say, but I've not got anyone else to replace them. So you had to work round about that problem. And then he had to say to them, you need a shape and you need a belief that we can still score goals and start winning games instead of all these draws we're getting. And gradually you could see when he left Aubameyang at a couple of the teams, not because of lack of form, just because he was telling everybody else, I'm the decision maker. And that leadership quality and the authority he's showing has been absolutely spot on. So I applaud him. I really did think when they signed him, he would be a real good one for us. And it was a real return of Arsenal, and it'll be time. But yes, overall, who can't be impressed by what Arteta's done?
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about Aubameyang. You know all about scoring a brace in a big cup final in Wembley, obviously the 87 League Cup against Liverpool. Aubameyang in the semi-final, final, you put a chance on his plate, he's going to take it. Just to put it into context how impressive his overall performance was on Saturday.
Well, I think there's been little time since Arteta came in that he looked frustrated, and I think that's where we'll go, well, he definitely is going. We can't do anything. It doesn't matter what we say to him, because he's saying, I want to play at a top club, but who's in for me? So is it Juventus? Is it Barcelona? Is it Real Madrid? But the COVID thing has caused a lot of problems within the footballing network. I think this guy is so clever. I mean, I'm not big into MTVs and all those type of shows that players get involved in, but I did watch one with Arteta in his house, and he had his mum there cooking, he had his wife there, he had kids. And then I went to somewhere in Italy, and the lifestyle that Aubameyang's got in London and at Arsenal is stardust. And I think he likes that. I think he plays on that. He's got his supercars and he can do whatever he wants because he's the king. And I think gradually what you've seen is he can say to Arsenal, if this is about money, then this is what you need to pay me. If it's not, and I just want to move, Arsenal can't stop it. But the last 5 or 6 games, he's looked to me, he's working hard going back the way. He's an absolute gold machine. But when you see the smile and the appreciation of what he does, which is brilliantly scoring goals, but also the link up with Pepe, with Arteta, with Lacazette, with the midfield players. That tells me there's something in there that he's loving. And for that, we love him. Now, the Ozil situation and the Sanchez situation and the Thierry situation, when we say they want to go, if he wants to go, we can't stop it. But I'm hoping what I see is because he puts the shift in, is that he feels that Arteta could be right. Now, that means we have to pay him Ozil's wages, we pay him it. And the reason being, he guarantees goals. And if you guarantee goals at Arsenal, you guarantee that Arsenal are going to get closer to winning the title and getting back to the Champions League.
And you also have the benefit of a manager who's clearly made a decision that his attitude is in the right place, because you mentioned the cars, and I think Mikel Arteta had a few off-field questions about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang until he actually worked with the guy and realised I was wrong. And that speaks volumes of Arteta as a manager as well, that he can actually say, I've changed my mind on this guy.
Well, I think so, because I recall, I'm trying to think back to when it was, but he started to change, and I think it was the quarterfinals at FA Cup. I think it was Sheffield United, and we were doing the build-up to different games and how he was going to assess things, because young Saka was looking really special. Martinelli, unfortunately, was injured, but he looked special. Eddie Nikita, what are we going to do with him? Is he going to... And suddenly, Aubameyang looked at young Eddie Nikita coming in, but he didn't get the number 9. Eddie did. And then I think he went, I want you, Aubameyang, to be working and helping Saka or Tierney, whoever's playing that role. And he didn't do it for 2 games. And I think that's when Arteta went, I don't know if I've lost him. But gradually, but surely, he started to see Aubameyang be the leader, be the captain. I know he dropped the cup at the weekend, but, there was a sign of, have you earned the right to be the captain? Because Arsenal have struggled for a captain for years, as you know. But he looks the part. He looks as if he's embraced it. He looks as if he looks at it and smiles to the other players and says, come on, give me more. I can score goals for you, but you have got to do the other parts. And I really do think that was the turnaround point for Arteta that says, I won't judge you in a personal level off the field. I need to see it on the field and in training. And I think Guardiola had exactly the same focus. When he took over Barcelona, it wasn't about who was driving special cars, who was in the first team, the second team. It was about what talent fits into my style. And Aubameyang fits into that in abundance. And that's why I think Arteta's now saying, he guarantees me 25 goals a season. I must keep him.
Putting your striker's hat on for a moment, where does Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang rank in terms of the continent's best goal scorers at the moment?
Oh, well, he's right up there. Absolutely no doubt he's right up there. And that's why I can see Real Madrid and Juve and all them looking at buying him, because they're all trying to do deals to sell off because they need some money. Everybody needs it, Barcelona included. And then they're trying to work out who's cheaper, who's the best buy. And because of Aubameyang's age, people try to look at that number. Because at one stage, I don't know if you've seen the media stuff over here, but, it was, especially in London, it was suggesting about 30 million quid for Aubameyang. I thought, who put that number on? I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's the market, how it can go up and down. So I generally do think that I can understand how people judge. But Messi's the best in the world that I've ever seen, because he does it every season. Ronaldo, people can openly debate with me about their opinion whether he's the best or not, but they do it every season. Aubameyang has been doing it for a long time now, and I think he loves doing it. And I do generally believe that if I said to him right now, the big clubs you can go to, well, there's 2 in England that are bigger than Arsenal. There's Liverpool and there's Man City. Does he really want to go and join Manchester United? Are they getting closer? My answer yet is no. I still think Man City and Liverpool are still a way out there. I don't think Juventus are miles ahead because they keep winning the league in Italy. And Barcelona is struggling for cash. And I don't think Real Madrid are actually so rich as what they were and what they want. So I'm finding that for one of the best strikers, certainly one of the best finishers in world football, I am very optimistic about him being in the red and white of Arsenal.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly a vast array of attacking talents doing the rounds at the moment as well. And hopefully, from an Arsenal perspective, the 31-year-old thing actually dissuades people from investing long-term in Aubameyang as well. So that's probably one of the hopeful notes from an Arsenal point of view.
It is, because, when I look at the so-called 5, I mean, Bayern Munich would probably come into that category. But Lewandowski says he's best goal scoring season ever. And I think he's similar age. So why would they want to break that up? I don't see it. And I really do think there's a small margin of the type of clubs that he belongs to. And I think that margin has shrunk. And, you know, the levels of players that we're looking at, like everybody's talking about, the Bala, Martinez, and, you know, all these type of Harry Kane for Manchester United, all these type of guys, you know what I mean? Aubameyang has been doing it with regularity, but I don't know, there's something in there. Maybe it's also the little link that he had with Dortmund, that he helped make Dortmund become a big club again after being in the doldrums. Maybe this is how he sees Arsenal, being in the doldrums, gradually getting right back to the top again, and him being a major fabric of that. So, yeah. I mean, we have to be careful that we don't get carried away, that he might just say one day, I'm not re-signing. But, you know, I really do. The small choices that he has, I think we fit him perfectly.
In terms of other summer business then for Arsenal, they've been linked with Philippe Coutinho this morning. The Willian links are getting stronger and stronger. Jack Grealish was mentioned as a possible Arsenal target last week. What are you thinking in terms of which is the most legitimate of the possible transfers that Arsenal have been linked with over the last little while?
Well, sometimes it discourages me, I have to be honest. In terms of Willian, well, he's a free agent, so you can get him on the cheap. You give him a big salary, and you say, right, are you good enough? This guy's a quality player, I don't deny that. But there's the age special, and I look at people like Nelson, like Saka, that want to come into the team and do well. You know, Martinelli, when he comes back, will be a centre forward, and then Keith. So I don't really see where the purchase makes sense to Arsenal. Willian, for a free agent, yeah, I can get that one, because you want to build up a big squad. And I expect Arsenal to unload maybe 7 or 8, could be more. 7 or 8, I would suspect. The thing that always concerns me, that Saliba has signed and will start the new campaign, which is great. He's young, he's fast, but he's still slightly naive when I watched him playing for St Etienne. But we need other centre-backs. We need 2 more centre-backs. I do believe we need a right-back. You know, I think there's no disrespect, but I think Socrates' time is up. I know Mustafi is injured, so we can't sell him, but I think his time is up. Rob Holding, I think, has been unfairly treated, because it's not his fault. They couldn't make him better. Can he reach the heights that I expect him to get to? I'm not sure. So if the right offer comes in, I would sell him. But Arsenal's master plan has to be 2 centre-backs. We've got 2 strong goalkeepers now. We probably need a cover just in case Kieran Tierney was to get a little bit injured again. Kolasinac actually fits that, but he's not a natural defender. So 2 centre-backs, a right-back, and then I see 7 or 8 people getting sold. I would like to see Ceballos staying again. It looks as if that's possible, because he's not, you know, I'm not a great believer in the protectors in front of a back 3. Yes, you need them. They're there for a reason. But Gilberto Silva was one of the best we had. He wasn't the most physical or the quickest we ever had. You need someone who understands the position. Xhaka doesn't always do it for me. He gives the ball away too cheaply. So I wouldn't mind somebody in that position also beside Ceballos, because I think Torreira will go. I think obviously Guendouzi will go. And I think with the sales that you'll get, I think that could bring us forward to really say we can get 3 defenders in. And I think that's where Arsenal go. That's where the problems have always been. And it's stuck everybody in the eye, and surely Arteta's seen it. I believe he has.
It's going to be interesting as well to see how far up the table it actually does take them next season. Like you've mentioned Manchester United there in passing about how you feel that they're a step below the top 2 yet. You obviously got a great look at Chelsea on Saturday and where their weaknesses lie. It is going to be one of the more fascinating questions looking ahead to the new season. Who is going to finish 3rd? Who's best placed in your view to finish outside the top 2?
I would say at the moment it's Manchester United. I mean, they finished 3rd because of the failures of others. You know, it's Arsenal's worst season. Spurs were pretty ordinary. Leicester fell away. And of course, Chelsea had a roller coaster season, not just by youth, but the same problems as Arsenal, if I'm being honest. Struggling defensively, couldn't get a settled defence, and not a very good keeper. Whereas we proved we've got 2 good keepers. So I think if Arsenal were to get 2 defenders in, I think it makes them 3rd best. Manchester United have more financial muscle than the Arsenal. They have better prospects of solving that situation. But I don't think I'm being honest, I really don't. If Arsenal sign 2 defenders, I really do think Arsenal and Manchester United become the next level. Chelsea have to sign. They've signed Werner, but again, another attacker. I think Chelsea need 3 defenders. I think, depending on who Leicester sign, because we know Brendan Rodgers' style, but I think he needs 3 or 4 players, and a strong talk here in Glasgow that he's very favourable for Edouard at Celtic. That would be a good signing for him. But yeah, the rest, I mean, will Spurs get stronger under Mourinho? I'm not convinced they will. I think Wolves are good, but maybe they've hit their peak. So, you know, lots of things. I really do think if Arsenal sign 2 defenders, Arsenal and Manchester United are the next best.
Right, very interesting. While we're talking about transfers, Charlie, I really wanted to just get a few memories from your own career and kind of talking about the idea of big transfers, 1983, Celtic to Arsenal. Like, I mean, so many moves are hyped at the moment. I mean, there's transfers talked about every single day on every sports channel at the moment. Yeah. Back then, that wasn't the case. But I'd say as far as the time went, your move was as hyped a transfer as you possibly could have had in the early 80s. Did you feel that on the inside, making that move from Celtic to Arsenal?
Yeah, I most certainly did. You know, when I look back, I've not got a bad word to say about Arsenal. I know I criticise the teams on a fairly regular basis when it doesn't go right, but that's part of being a fan. That's where it comes from here. But up here, there's no doubt when I was available at the time, Celtic simply wanted to sell me. I had no issue. The player had no control over the contract situation. You know, people would say to me, well, you could say no. I didn't want to leave Celtic at the time. I thought it was too early for me. But they were adamant that they wanted to cash in. And then I had Liverpool, Inter Milan, Manchester United, Spurs and Arsenal all interested in signing me. The one that made the biggest sense was Liverpool by a mile. They were the best team on the planet. But could I actually get into the team with Douglas and Rush? I think I believed in my ability, but was I convinced that Liverpool could change the team and let me in? I had my doubts. That's why I didn't sign. The only reason I didn't sign for King Kenny and Liverpool. But Arsenal were trying. Yes, it was. You know, I was with Scotland international team at the time. I was sharing rooms with Graham Souness, who was the captain and one of the true world-class players I played with. And they were telling me everything about Liverpool. And of course, I knew everything about Liverpool, but I kept saying the same thing. How am I going to replace King Kenny Dalglish or Ian Rush? It's just not feasible right now. And I would have to be patient and wait. And I was used to playing in Europe with Celtic. I was playing every week. And because of that, I didn't really want to, you know, be getting choked a little bit. So I believed Arsenal were trying to do the right thing. They were trying to sign Liam Brady. They were trying to sign back from Italy. They were trying to sign Ray Wilkins from Chelsea. And I thought it started to believe in a bit of change. Now, that never happened. And it was a bit painful, if I'm being honest, when I first went there, because it was boring Arsenal. But it's a club I've got remarkable respect for. I loved my time there. The fans were magnificent with me, most of them. But I think, in all honesty, when I look back in it, you know, you make your choice thinking that your style is important. Now, my style didn't really fit into the Arsenal criteria, if I'm being fair. Not their fault, not my fault, just the way it was. It did fit in to the Liverpool criteria, but could I get in the team? So for players now, that's where I look at Aubameyang. I look at people like Edouard and I say, these talented boys, you have to go to a style that suits. And when Thierry Henry did well to say that at the time, Thierry Henry got the opportunity to be the best player I've ever seen at Arsenal. And when he decided he wanted to go to Barcelona, I thought, it will take him time because it doesn't just fit like a glove. And it did take him time. And it did eventually fit like a glove. But he didn't stay there long. And that's the reality of the players trying to make the right decision, which is the right fit for them, rather than just choking. We had that before. We've seen Sanchez go to Manchester United and struggle when he was a warrior for us at Arsenal. So these things have to be taken into account. And I think that's why a lot of the players now are in control. They know what the finances are. That's not the issue. It's the style thing.
Were you very conscious at the time, Charlie, of how highly rated you were? It must seem like a fairly stupid question, considering your statistics were off the charts in Scotland at the time. But to be described as the most exciting player to emerge in Britain since George Best, that was a quote from the newspapers at the time. Did that add to your sense of pressure at the time as a young 21-year-old?
Yes, yeah, it did, absolutely, no doubt. It's when you go and play in the European Cup for Celtic and you're going to Juventus, and you know, before when we used to turn up, we didn't really get much media coverage. All of a sudden, there was a little bit more, and it was kind of pinning in me, a little bit more extravagance than that. And I remember being in Romania before we played Gilroy, and they asked to take me on the TV, and Celtic were going, "Hold on, what happens here?" And I was trying to accept it myself, you know, and understand. When my manager at the time, God rest him, was Billy McNeil, who had won the European Cup for Celtic, and he was saying to me, you know, I've never really came across this before, even when we had the Lions. Jimmy Johnson went to Real Madrid in a friendly and had them all applauding, and they were all raving about him, but very quickly they forgot about it because you hardly seen it in the TV. So, yeah, it was building up, and then the interest from Inter Milan, I think, started the little craze of interest. So it was added pressure because, if I'm being realistic, I mean, people look at the personality I had or what I was trying to be. I really wasn't trying to be the superstar. I was just trying to be a really top player in Celtic's team and nailing down my position. And as it got better, I wanted to get better. But I wasn't thinking of stardom. I wasn't thinking of, God help me. I mean, being mentioned with George Best, who ended up a real good friend of mine. But, I mean, that was ridiculous. I mean, the talent that guy had was just out of this planet. And he played at the biggest club in the world at that time, and he did. So, yeah, I think it was slightly unfair, but it was a burden that they gave me, they tagged me, just like Champagne Charlie when I couldn't afford champagne. But the reality was, yeah, you put up with it, and, you know, I had to learn to cope with it.
Did you love or hate that nickname?
No, I didn't like the nickname because when I first got into the first team at Celtic, I was on £30 a week. And the one thing I could never afford was champagne. I was never really a mad beer drinker. For whatever reason, I always quite liked wine. And, you know, there was just something about champagne, but it was a headline makers, you know, Charlie Bubbles sticks again, or champagne. It was an easy headline and a rather tame headline when I thought of creativity. But I could get it. I could understand it. You know, it was guy with an earring, wearing no socks. But everybody my age was dressing the way I was dressing. I was nothing different. But because I was scoring goals, I was getting this. So, yeah, it did bother me. And then I think by the time I got to 22, 23, I had to accept it. And I did accept it. In London, it was always tagged and people were calling me Champagne. And I thought, I don't quite get this sometimes, but there you go. It was something I had to learn to live with. But I never felt it. I fit the credentials of being named Champagne Charlie. There was so many.
Yeah, like I find it interesting as well that it's at that era when tabloid culture is really setting in, and there's a lot of footballers' personal lives that are being exposed, and like the George Best comparison perhaps is a good one considering the amount of his life that was exposed down through the years. And I'm sure you felt that firsthand.
Yeah, you do. And the strange thing is, when I got to London and signed for Arsenal, within about 3 months, the days of no mobiles and social media, you know, very quickly I was bumping into George Best because we were at functions together, and you know, and Bestie was the most shy superstar I've ever met in my life. He was just a quiet, very humble man that didn't like too many people round about him. There was no hangers on with George Best. So then I was getting tagged because, you know, I could go out and have a few drinks with friends and be at a couple of nice Stardust parties, and that would be on a Tuesday, but the press would put it in on a Saturday morning. So it looked as if I was out on the Friday night. So it was all very convenient because you couldn't stand up and question it. So, yes, it was easy to tag it. But then again, I was 21. I was a single guy. I was moving to London with a reputation that I couldn't control. And people say, well, you didn't need to go out. But hold on a minute, well, you're blocking my lifestyle. So I have to change everything I do because I believe totally in hard work and training because I loved it. And I loved doing it. I was always fit. I came back from a broken leg at Celtic and appreciated my fitness more. So I never quite always learned to accept what they were doing. And now I'm in the media myself, but I don't really look at people's personal lives. I look at their football, and then after that, that's entirely up to them. So they're not judged like that. But it was something taken on board. But hey, to be mentioned in the same breath sometimes with George Best now is no bad thing.
I think that individuality is always a good thing, and perhaps people ahead of their time
in the 80s would have been able to realise that. Like, from the outside looking in, it definitely felt to me that the last person you would have wanted to manage you at a certain point would have been George Graham, who does come in. I dare say he wasn't fond of the individuality as much as other managers might have been.
No, George wasn't. George got this reputation as a disciplinarian, and he wasn't the basis of it. He was a hard-nosed Glasgow boy, but George always felt he was very smooth. George always came in with his little sweater over with his wrap around in the neck, and he looks as if he was always going on tour to Europe. He always had a tan. He was always well-groomed, George, and he always had a nice car. And George liked that style of life, but he didn't like his players having it. And if you were slightly ahead of George, sadly for me, I always had a better car than George. Will I dressed better? That's open for debate. But the whole realisation of it is, it was something that George was not overly fond of. But it didn't stop George working you in the training field and treating you the same. Because I think what George did realise is that I could put a shift in training. The thing I didn't fit in was George's squeezing from the front and everybody in off the ball really having to work hard like this. Myself, Kenny Sansom, Graham Ricks, these type of players, Stevie Williams at Arsenal at the time, Tony Woodcock, we never really played like that. We were all international players who played with the ball. And when George was coming in to start to change all this, he wanted pace, he wanted hunger, he wanted hard workers off the ball. Then we could very quickly realise that their time was coming to an end. George was a smashing coach, a really top coach, as his stats proved. But for us and for me, at least getting the first trophy on the boardroom, that was the start to help, not George in particular, but the club itself start to grab back. Hopefully this is a similar time. But no, George and I, later on, George banded me to the reserves just to keep me out of the picture, which I thought was very unfair. And any time I ever asked for a sit-down one-on-one with George to see if I could probably get away at the time, George always refused that. He never liked one-on-ones. He wasn't that man enough to stand up to me in that side of things. But, I would never take anything away from George as a coach. He was a different class.
Right, okay, that's very interesting. Like, I also find the final act of your club career fascinating as well. Like, going back up to Scotland, going back to Celtic, and this era at Celtic is something that I find fascinating. We don't really talk about it too often here. We don't really talk about Liam Brady as a manager all that often, considering he was obviously such an iconic footballer. But what was your memories of those couple of years under Brady when you go back to play at Celtic under his management?
Well, I was quite pleased. I'd met Liam a couple of times. Liam and Graham Ricks, who was my great mate at Arsenal, were big pals from way back in the late 70s, early 80s. They spent a lot of time together and had great beliefs about the way the game should be played. And there was a couple of nights in London, we had social nights out with Chippy. And I always thought, for such a superstar footballer, I could see him learning in Italy and understanding what the shape of a team should be. And when he got the Arsenal gig, I really did think, oh, this is encouraging. Be interesting to see. I knew it would take him time. I mean, I could go into the details of Rangers and how they were paying way over the top money and EBTs and everything were coming in. That's part of what's going on in Scottish football for such a long time. But at the time, they were buying Laudrup and Gascoigne and spending a fortune. And we had the old Celtic board who couldn't afford it. So it was really, really narrow budget. And it really limited players that you could bring in. And when Liam came, he had no money. He had what was there. He brought in Tony Cascarino, who, to be honest, struggled badly at Celtic. And then he was looking at people like Andy Payton. And there wasn't an area where he was going to make things better. He signed Stuart Slater from West Ham. And Stuart Slater was probably one of the better ones we had, but he found it really, really mentally tough. Because Celtic's a beast of a football club. You have to train and win every game. Every day, every game. It's just the nature of the beast, because what Glasgow is. And he really found that tough. The demands every day were tough. So Liam found it tough also that he couldn't turn it around, because Rangers were the strongest. But at the time, Joe Jordan was a manager at Hearts, and they were second best. Gradually, he brought Joe Jordan in to be his number two. And very quickly, Liam Brady and Joe Jordan left the building. which was strange. But this was an old board that he had to manage in front of, who had no money, no ambition, and Liam was always going to struggle. It was a tough time. It was an absolutely wrong time for Liam to take the Celtic job, sadly, and that's why it never worked. Not because Liam didn't have the gift. It was just simply that Celtic were in the wreck.
And the unfortunate thing about football is that you are kind of held to the bad days in your career. It's totally unfair. I mean, like as you say, especially in Scotland, if there is a very, very strong Rangers team, then I mean your Celtic, your prospective opportunities might be lessened immediately.
Yeah.
That is how kind of simple it can be. We may just before we wrap up, get your take on the current Celtic situation. Then, I mean, great start for them at the weekend. Rangers snuck over the line. How far ahead of the pack are Celtic in your view? Is 10 in a row a near certainty, or are they going to work for it?
Well, the way it stands now, I wouldn't say it's a certainty. Rangers, and people can debate this everywhere because it's Steven Gerrard across the road in Glasgow. He has improved them, no matter what the hardcore say. He's improved them, and I'll tell you the reasons why he's improved them. They're still in Europe this Thursday. They will go out, but that was a big return financially and a big for their reputation. He fills the stadium every week. There's no other manager that could have done that the way that he does it. And still 2 years into this, he's sold the season tickets again. He's improved them as a team. Sure, they didn't close the gap in Celtic last season, but this is a little bit like what Liam Brady faced when he was Celtic manager. It takes you time to build it. Have you got the time? Have you got the patience? Rangers have closed the gap. Celtic have had it easy and been too good for 9 solid years. But last year there was a threat. Gradually Rangers faltered. The danger for Celtic is players now control the market. And if Leeds, Everton, Newcastle, West Brom, these type of teams that's linked with Edouard were to come in and bid to entice Edouard to go and take the salary, and he wants to go, you will go. That would make it a very even playing field, in my opinion, because Rangers have been producing. Even if they sell Morelos, it makes no difference. They'll get a player who can score 20 goals. It doesn't need to be £8 million players. But Celtic are in the driving seat because they have the knowledge, they have the will for it. But at the moment, Edouard is the key to it. But not re-signing Foster, it was a bit of a loss. But Edouard is the key. If he stays, Celtic win 10 in a row. If he decides that he wants to take a deal, Celtic are now on an 11 even field with Rangers, and it could go either way.
Right, that's a very blunt way of putting it, and it probably is the case. John Hartson was with us on Friday, and he said that Steven Gerrard has not been a success at Rangers so far. But from the way you're talking, it seems that let's not judge him on what he hasn't won trophy-wise just yet. They've actually made big leaps forward. Yeah, well, I know John and Chris Sutton and all the other ex-Celtic players have been saying that quite regular now that they work for Celtic TV. But, you know, the essence of it is that I would just simply say, if you're the second best team in the country by a mile, when Gerrard took over, they weren't even the second best team. You know, Aberdeen were better than them. And all I would say is, how do you judge success? You know, I look at our Mikel Arteta and I judge success. He said 1 trophy and it all looks good. Klopp, people were saying that he wasn't good enough 18 months ago. You'll never make it at Liverpool. You should be out. Look at him now. So, you know, people have their own opinion and sometimes their own agenda on it. All I can say, it depends how you want to balance it. If you want to balance it in fairness, then I say Gerrard's route into Europe has lasted longer than Celtic's. That's a success. They were never going to win it. No, were Celtic. They should have beat Celtic in the League Cup. They didn't, but that's not success. So I see it getting closer. I see them filling the stadium. I see the team improving. And I think that's success. That doesn't mean you win a trophy. I'm sure there's plenty of managers that John Hartson and others played under who were very good. Were they ever successful? Probably at the clubs. Was Eddie Howe successful in bringing Bournemouth from the ranks of nothing to 5 years in the Premier League? Yes, that's success. Did he win anything? No. Yeah, it's not all down to trophies. At the end of the day, everything is relative. Listen, Charlie, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks a million for being so generous with your time, and hopefully chat to you again soon.
Brilliant, take care.
I signed for them after the Euros. After my first day's training, I was driving home. I was actually thinking, regretting what I did. Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
OTBAM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Phil Egan is here for Deal or No Deal. Phil, how are you?
Well, how are you doing, Ger?
Feeling the pressure yet?
I know, it's still early days, but one of these big deals has hit a bit of a snag.
Is it the 10th of October before this closes?
Yeah.
So August, September, the 10th of October. We have 8 weeks of this left.
I know. Better pace myself. But if you think
10 weeks.
The Premier League season starts on the 12th of September. Bundesliga, as I know we'll be talking about that in a minute, that starts on the 18th of September. You want to get the deals done quickly because you want to get these players a pre-season. Especially nowadays, you're not getting your pre-season tour. It's really has to be done on the training ground. You can do friendlies, obviously, but you can't do the whole pre-season tour the way clubs have done over the last few seasons.
Andy Mitten was breaking news and dropping truth bombs on Off the Ball last night. He said that neither a transfer fee nor personal terms have been agreed between Manchester United, Jadon Sancho and Borussia Dortmund. If Manchester United don't get Jadon Sancho, and it looks like, you know, there's certainly a little bit of brinkmanship going on at the moment, will it be a massive flop on their part? Or is it a sign of progress that they're no longer being held to ransom by agents, 20-year-olds and Germans?
This is classic Manchester United. They love a transfer saga. You think back to Paul Pogba 2016. Eventually it got done. You know, you think to Harry Maguire.
Oh, Harry Maguire.
Yeah, and you know, we spent weeks talking about what kind of price they were going to pay, and ultimately they end up paying the price that they were named or given at the start of the summer. So I think there's going to be something similar along the lines of this deal with Borussia Dortmund and United and Jadon Sancho. 120 million euro is what Dortmund want. United are thinking, we've got 90, and they've got to try and meet, whether it's in the middle. But this deal has been talked about being in instalments. So Manchester United can afford this. So are they going to just drag it out and not pay and then eventually pay and think if they had done it earlier, they could have had Sancho on the books a lot earlier?
Well, that's what they did with Harry Maguire. That's essentially what they've done with every transfer all the way back, as was it Daniel Harris said, all the way back to Berbatov, or I don't know who made that point, but this is how they do business.
Yeah, and you know, it hasn't worked as well as other clubs' transfer strategies. We're obviously going to talk about Manchester City. They're getting their deals done quickly. Chelsea already have a few deals done, and you know they did them early. It just gives you a chance to assess what you're working with before you even head into a pre-season. So we know how good Jadon Sancho is, and he's that good. You could honestly, you could sign him on Wednesday and throw him into a team on Saturday, and he'd make a huge difference because he's just that talented. But it'd be nice to be able to look at him and see how your other players play alongside him in training. What's the best combination? Because I know you were talking about that with Daniel Harris. What is going to be the front three? You know,
yeah,
Sancho has to be part of it.
100%.
So who are the other two?
Well, and look, they can work that out. Jack Grealish apparently is being offered a new contract worth $100,000 a week. Ooh, he's obviously been watching $1 million. That doesn't sound like enough to keep Jack Grealish happy when he's looking at how much everybody else is getting. However, is this the moment where Manchester United just go, look, whatever about your late night driving and your flip-flops, we're going to get you for 50, 60 million and sign you to a deal, and you're going to be cheaper than Jadon Sancho. We'll get Jadon Sancho next year.
Yeah, I mean, this story was going around earlier in the season that they were going to try and sign both players. At one stage, actually, they were talking about signing Sancho, Maddison, Grealish. I didn't know where they were all going to fit in, but I think you're going to have to pay more for Jack Grealish. I talked about this last week, where this is Villa's prize asset. It's not like Dortmund, where Dortmund can get certain types of players if they sell Jadon Sancho. I mean, look who they signed. They signed Haaland, where a lot of clubs were after him.
Yeah,
Villa can't do that. Villa can't attract those kind of players, so they have to make sure that they get as much money for Grealish as possible. And I genuinely feel that they'll price clubs out of Grealish. And it seems like United are the only club in the Premier League that wants Grealish. Is he going to go abroad?
Unlikely.
Unlikely.
Maybe that's the right move for him. He should think about it, because that might be perfect for him. So give me, out of 10, Jack Grealish to Manchester United.
I'm going to say 4 out of 10.
Okay, and give me, out of 10, Jadon Sancho to Manchester United in August?
Ooh, maybe 7 out of 10.
Oh, you think it's still going to happen?
Yeah, and September, I'd be then going up towards 8 or 9. October, will we put it up to 10 for October? Will they get it done just before?
Right, okay. So you think it's definitely going to get done, it's just a matter of when?
Yeah, I just don't think United like being told this is what you have to do. This is...
It's gonna get done this week. Like, I mean, it's not just gonna be a matter of days that they're talking about here. Like we've seen the situation here where you've had Andy Mitten on the show last night, but you've got like a lot of people on Twitter, like Fabrizio Romano seems to be one of the guys who everybody looks to for transfer news, and his latest one is that personal terms are okay. Now I know that it's always to do with the club, and that is the big sticking point here, but I'll give them a couple of days to actually sort that out. I don't think this one's going to be strung out as long as the last few, because United may actually just realise we're probably going to have to pay it eventually, so let's just do it this week.
Yeah, and also Solskjaer's definitely going to be asked about it tonight after the second leg of that game against Lask. It's going to be one of the first questions he's asked. And he doesn't want to be asked about this week in, week out. And he can say now to Ed Woodward, look, I just finished third with not the greatest team, but...
Pretty expensive team.
You give me better players and, you know, I can close the gap on that top two.
So I think Sebastian Schweinsteiger is an all-time great. That's what I think. So, you know, what do I know, Phil? Ole, what do I know? Right, let's go to some other clubs. Manchester City have signed Ferran Torres. We know this from Valencia in a deal worth a reported 20 million, which seems like a good bit of business for them. It's been reported this morning that City are also about to sign off on the Nathan Ake deal for 41 million. So, you know, whatever they've saved on Ferran Torres, 41 million for Nathan Ake. Is this a sign of a busy window to come? Are they getting all their business done early? Is this the end of things for Manchester City now, Phil?
You would imagine there's more to come, because I certainly think they need more if they want to close the gap on Liverpool, because I'm thinking even if they had Torres and Ake last season, would they have got closer to Liverpool? Maybe a little bit, but not that much. The problem City have, you look at the teams that beat them, they lost twice to United, they lost twice to Wolves, they lost to Liverpool, they lost to Chelsea. The Norwich and Southampton games were a little bit freaky, but the other teams I mentioned, they all play counter-attack very well when they have to. And that's where City are so vulnerable. City actually had the second best defence in the Premier League, because they obviously own the ball for so much of a game that it's very hard to get it off them. But when you can get at them, they still have problems at full-back. What's their best partnership at central defence? I know the art of defending is not something Pep Guardiola loses sleep over, because his way of defending is if we have the ball, we can't concede. That's his ideology or his philosophy of the way they play. That's fine. But if you do get the ball off them and you counter-attack them, they're vulnerable. So he needs to get a more stable partnership in central defence, and he needs to get better fullbacks, more reliable fullbacks, cut out those individual costly errors which in the bigger games against the better teams have been their undoing. And then looking at the top end of the pitch, obviously David Silva's gone. Does that mean he brings Bernardo Silva into that David Silva position? Certainly he's good enough to play there. He technically, you know, just as gifted as David Silva. Then, you know, do you bring Torres in where Mahrez plays? Mahrez on his day is excellent. We saw that when he won the league with Leicester, but doesn't deliver week in, week out. And then I've said it before with Aguero, if he's not there, Gabriel Jesus is not like for like. He likes to drift into wider positions and he's just not as prolific. So I think if they'd need a better backup for Aguero.
Okay, so you think that there's loads more to come from Manchester City. Your prediction is that there will be several other players arriving.
Maybe looking at another 2 players.
Okay. Liverpool, Premier League champions Liverpool, are close to completing a 9 million deal for Betis and Algeria defender Issa Mandi, who's 28. They're also preparing a 10 million bid for Norwich and Northern Ireland left-back Jamal Lewis, who's 22, as they look for cover for Andy Robertson. Some low-key signings, essentially, here. Squad players, anybody capable of making it into the first team? And is this the end of their transfer business?
I think the Lewis one would be a good signing, because Andy Robertson, they do need cover from, and they need a natural left back to cover for him, and not James Milner. Or think back to Liverpool's first game back after the restart. Milner went off, Joe Gomez came on, and again that same problem where as a right footer the natural instinct is to cut inside, where Andy Robertson is constantly up and down that touchline. And Lewis gives you that option. He's got that pace. He's a natural left footer, and he would be a good squad player to have and take a little bit of pressure off Andy Robertson, where you can say, do you know what, we have a home game against a lower division or lower table team. You can sit this one out. We'll let Jamal Lewis in there, and another player that Klopp wants to sign from a team that's been relegated. We saw the success that Andy Robertson, Gini Wijnaldum, another one where Klopp looks at these relegated clubs and thinks, what can I take from them? And he turns them into successes.
Okay, so no more signings?
I think if they were... Obviously, Mandy as a centre-half is another one that they've let Lovren go. They have Fabinho if they want to play him as a centre-half. I remember he played the first leg against Bayern Munich a couple of seasons ago in the Champions League because Van Dijk was suspended. But they do need cover there because Matip is injury-prone. He only played 13 games this season. Gomez has picked up the odd knock as well. Gomez is he's the long-term partner in central defence for Virgil van Dijk, but you certainly need cover there. I think Liverpool could do with a better backup goalkeeper because we saw with the drop-off there, the Atletico Madrid second leg. If Alisson was in goal that night, Liverpool are still in the Champions League. Think the same with the cup game against Chelsea. Adrian, bit of a cult hero at the start of the season, but he ultimately cost them, at the latter end of the season when there was silverware up for grabs.
Out of 10, Alcantara is going to arrive?
This one has been talked about. I'm not so sure about it. Maybe I'll give it a 6.
Okay, all right. Arsenal. Willian has reportedly told friends he is ready to join Arsenal once they get knocked out of the Champions League officially at the weekend, which we know is going to happen more than likely. This, despite the fact that Inter Miami are interested. I can see the attraction of Inter Miami for a couple of years. They could also sign Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona. Apparently, TalkSport are saying simply to keep hold of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I mean, okay, but Dembele was he 80 million, 120 million? Was that the price that Barcelona paid for him originally? So he's obviously a very good player who just hasn't quite worked out yet because of injury, and it can be difficult trying to win over Leo Messi. Would this be a brilliant signing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you bring him in, you put him on the left, you move Aubameyang into the centre, and I'm sorry, Alexander Lacazette, but it's a place on the bench for you.
Not having the whole Lacazette out thing, which seems to be a bit of a trend going at the moment. I think he's been brilliant to conclude the season, and there is other rumours doing the rounds that Arsenal are willing to offload Lacazette to potentially strengthen in other areas. Not having that whatsoever, I think he is vital actually to that front three for Arsenal. And there's nothing wrong with Aubameyang on the left flank. I'm interested to see what's the exact appeal here that to keep Aubameyang happy. They need to bring in a striker who, he has been injured, but he hasn't been amazing either at times as well for Barcelona recently. Barcelona want to get Lautaro Martinez, and selling Dembele might be the only way to make that happen.
That's the transfer market. I was checking the exact transfer fee. They reported as 124 million.
For Dembele. Yeah, a quality player, obviously has had injury problems, and the worry is it's hamstring problems, and he's such a speedy player that...
They eventually, Arsenal's a perfect club where they're not going to have any long-term problems, any issues like that, are they? They've got a long track record of fixing those issues for players.
Yeah, we've barely seen him this season. I don't recall seeing him play at any point really. A couple of Champions League appearances maybe.
I think when he was fit, they were trying to get him in. A couple of things that I've got to mention as well. Guendouzi looks like he's going to rejoin Unai Emery, and Lucas Torreira is on his way out as well. So Arteta is being given the opportunity here to bring in, bring out, and to have a cull in the same way that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been trying to have a cull and has been slowly getting there. Weeding out the contracts that are the ruination of the dressing room, weeding out the characters that are the ruination of the dressing room. What does it say about Mikel Arteta that he's being allowed to do this, Phil?
Well, I think the fact that they won the FA Cup gives them more opportunity to do that now. He can basically turn to the owners and say, I've just won you a trophy. And I see a lot of people saying that, look at their league table position, but don't forget when he took over, that spell that Freddie Ljungberg had, he brought them down the table even further. So I think Arteta's done a good job. I think you can see there's a definite plan in place. Looking at that team that started against Chelsea the other day, obviously it needs improvement. Kieran Tierney was part of the three-man defence, but you actually want him as your left wing back, and then you need to strengthen in central defence. I don't know if 3 at the back is what Arteta wants in the long term. Probably not, but he probably feels that with David Luiz, he needs to have another 2 players beside him. But, you know, David Luiz, for all the people that knock him, in a three-man defence actually works because, you know, he's a good ball player. He can spot a pass, and it takes a bit of pressure off him for defending. So, no, I think Arteta, that bit of silverware is definitely a massive plus, because I said he can prove.
60-second round here. I just want a likelihood or unlikely at this. Chelsea right back Branislav Ivanovic says he will probably link up with his old boss Carlo Ancelotti at Everton. This is according to The Sun. Probably slotting in as a centre back at this stage of his career, if at all. But could this have any ramifications for Seamus Coleman at right back, and is this going to happen?
I don't think it'll have any impact on Seamus Coleman's position. I don't think it's good business for Everton. A 36-year-old, you know, looking at the end of Everton season, they certainly looked a bit
that's what they needed,
lacking
Phil.
ideas. They don't need a 36-year-old. They need some fresh blood in there.
Someone slow and who used to be good, clogging up the opportunities for the young lads coming through. That's exactly what they need. Newcastle are eyeing a double swoop for Bournemouth's Norwegian striker Josh King and Welsh midfielder David Brooks after the Cherries were relegated, it says here, according to the Telegraph. Is this the best course of action for Newcastle?
They'd be 2 good signings. Brooks in particular. Obviously, we didn't see much of him this season because of the injury that he suffered. But what we saw of him in his first season, he looked very good. With Newcastle, they're just stuck in limbo because Steve Bruce wasn't a popular choice as manager. If you look at where they finished a point worse off than last season. But, you know, the way it was portrayed, because Rafa was a hero to the Magpies, their supporters, and, you know, they're just waiting for this takeover to happen.
I think I was very surprised that Steve Bruce did very well. I thought that Newcastle were going to get down because I thought Steve Bruce was a bad manager. I thought he did very well. And I think that Brooks in particular was considered one of the best young players in English football over the last couple of seasons. So if he gets a full season and plays well, there'd be no reason why they couldn't progress, even despite the fact they have one of the worst owners in England. Right, that is Deal or No Deal for another day. It's in the books.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training, I was driving home. I was actually thinking, regretting it. What have I done? Like I walked into a circus.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That is it from OTBAM this morning. If you want to win a €100 voucher for the Liverpool store in the ILAC Centre, then retweet this morning's OTBAM or WhatsApp us a screenshot of how you listened this morning. 087 9180 180 is the number to WhatsApp us to. If you haven't got the OTB Sports app yet, then go get on it. Search for OTB Sports and download. It is going to be the only place that you can get tickets for our forthcoming roadshows. It's on the event section there. And if you don't have it, you won't be able to come to our roadshows. So it's pretty simple. Today on OTB Gold at 1 o'clock on OTB Sports Radio, a brilliant Chris Waddle interview. Matt Holland is the Legends interview at 3 o'clock. A retro panel, The Money Madness in Football from 2013 with Stuart Byrne and Dan McDonnell. And tonight, Paul McGrath on the Jack era is OTB Gold from 6. And then tonight from 7, Pádraig Harrington, USPGA preview, Leo Cullen, Pat Nevin, Andrew Balbirnie on Ireland's win over England in the third one-day international that we've been talking about all morning on the show. If you missed this morning's show, then get it on podcast. We're live tomorrow morning and every morning from 7:30 on all of our social channels. But again, the best place, get the app. It's the only place, the best place to listen to our stuff. We'll see you tomorrow. Best of luck.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.